Shovel Knight in particular is very based on partially like Mega Man,
Right.
but also DuckTales.
Fuck,
Strangely enough.
that game is so good. Yes, you're totally, because the jumping with the cane.
Exactly.
Fuck. Ah!
Exactly.
Holy shit.
I was hoping you would know what that was, so that's perfectly good. Yeah.
Bro.
When they were making this game, like they cited, this was a big Kickstarter game. They directly cited like, we're gonna make a fucking DuckTales game. Like,
dude,
more or less.
I remember as a kid playing the fucking DuckTales game and being like, why is the DuckTales game so fucking good?
It was a Konami game, and Konami was making killer games.
Episode 17, recorded January 6, 2022.
Yeah, me too.
Feel nasty as fuck.
I haven't.
2 weeks. Shit.
Yeah.
I'll have what you're having.
Yeah, this is my winter coat here. So
I will shed it in mere months.
yeah, or Texas in minutes will be saying goodbye to winter. So
well, the newest post on Space City weather today said, "Is winter over in Texas?" And then they proceeded to say, "Not really."
oh, that's good.
So
Maybe since there's good news to be had.
probably won't get another freeze like that, but
Yeah. Good old. I mean, if we don't have one of those freezes like last year, I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So it's been like a while since we've done one.
Yeah. Do you know how long exactly? Because I can't.
I think the last one we did was on November 19th, and this is January 6th, so that's somewhere around 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6 or 7 weeks or something, because holidays and vacations and
Vacations.
and all that jazz and whatnot. So but it doesn't really matter, because when you're not releasing the things you record as you record them, it doesn't. There's no. The world was not impacted by us taking 6 weeks off. No one knew.
Yeah, there was no sort of uprising to get these things.
Yeah, no demand. No, I mean
no insurrection.
No interest surrection going on.
Happy failed Insurrection Day, everybody! Hey,
hey. So once when on our honeymoon, we did the jam cruise thing, and it stopped in Jamaica. And they gave you all these. Here's this list of all the shit you can do, right? And we're boring,
like local stuff.
Yeah, like go on this tour, that tour, blah 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 blah, and we're boring. We are boring people. So we're like, yeah, we'll do the thing where we go sit on the beach, and they give us alcohol.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
We'll just go sit there.
The thing you always see, like sit on the beach and someone brings you a Mai Tai or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I don't need to get on a 4-wheeler or a zip line.
I don't need any additional modes of transportation on this small island.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I don't need that. I almost had a panic attack on the bus getting back to that we were going to get back to the cruise ship on time.
Right.
But they had a DJ there on the beach, like so with a laptop hooked up to some speakers.
Like a Bluetooth speaker or something.
Not even. Oh. And
not even.
So, but that sound you just made with your mouth. Yeah. So his DJing was just playing like songs from the radio. And then he would hit that sound.
Hit the soundboard
over the top
fucking,
of it.
The morning DJ air horn soundboard. oh yeah.
Basically. So you were just hearing sort of
the
pop
fucking
music from the 2000s with.
Yeah, it was just one of the morning zoo crew guys became a DJ on the side in Jamaica. Yeah.
But it was charming.
It's Harry and the Fuzz or whatever the fuck.
Right. Yeah. All that Jim Jam.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. So I have something we can spitball and shoot the shit about.
Oh, good. So do I.
Oh, okay. Well, you go first.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't expect that. but okay. I was just gonna talk about a movie. If you want to talk about a movie,
Let's talk about a movie.
So I watched Don't Look Up.
Oh yeah, that's really funny because I watched that movie too, and while I was watching, I was like, this would probably be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I even thought about like texting you. It's like, what do you think about watching this movie? They're talking about it.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I watched it last night. So.
Oh, dude, I watched it like 3 or 4 nights. I watched it. I watched it before you got here. I watched it. I'm watching it right now.
Watched it before you knew what it was. In the know. Yeah. Did you like it?
Loved it.
Okay. I'm like, I liked it. I think I really liked it. Yeah.
You're not sure yet.
Well, no, I know that I did like it. I'm still not sure how much I did like it. But I liked it a lot.
So so you need to, so is there a movie that you can think of that you liked better? Like I mean, what in this Robert scale of like, I think I liked it. Like, what does that mean?
Well, no, like I appreciate it. I don't know that I'll like it so much. No, I do like it. Hang on, I'm twisting my words up here. I liked it. I don't know if I like loved it in a way that I'm like, I love this movie, because I don't know that I ever want to watch it again, for one thing. But
do you have to? Is that what loving a movie means?
Is that what love is to you? You want to watch things again? Yeah. Want to repeat the same thing over and over a lot? No, I don't know. Love. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, that was just my initial. That was what I thought after I got done watching it. I was like, I really like this. I don't know if I like loved this, but I'll think about it some more, and I'll probably just love it. So what it is to me is, they made a movie that is Idiocracy plus. To me, I'm gonna say Independence Day, but it probably more apt is like Armageddon or Deep Impact, because that's more like the actual thing that happens in that movie, right?
I described it as Deep Impact with dipshits.
Okay, so we got Idiocracy, we got Deep Impact, and I had some other thing, plus The Big Short.
I haven't seen that, so.
So that's Adam McKay is the dude who directed this movie.
Okay.
He did The Big Short. He did all the shit with Will Ferrell over the years, Talladega Nights, Anchorman, all this stuff.
Oh, okay.
And this movie is edited and cut like The Big Short.
Okay.
Which I love that fucking movie. It's fantastic. That's a movie that I'll watch over and over again. Because, like life, like love. I just do it a lot.
That's how you know you love it.
That's how you know you love
watch
it.
More than once.
That's what this movie. Yeah. Anyway, as I was watching this movie, I was like, "That's what this movie is," and it's really good. Yeah.
So what makes you feel on the fence about it?
I'm not on the fence about it. They're just like, I just wasn't sure if I was like fully over the moon for it.
Oh. Okay.
If that makes any sense.
I saw a trailer for a movie like yesterday that is about the moon falling out of orbit and hitting the Earth. So
okay.
I for a split second in my brain they were like everything was, and I was like, yeah, you're not over the moon, wink wink, because the moon. Wait, no, different movie. Hold on, shit. Oh,
let me
sorry.
Make this reference that you won't get. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, there were several things that I loved about it. I tend to sort of judge a movie, or I try to judge a movie by what I feel like it's reaching for. Like I try to judge a movie by its intention, more than anything else.
Sure.
And so there were several things that I really, really liked about the movie. And there were several things that I really respected that they were able to pull off. So spoilers ahead.
Right.
If you haven't seen the movie, spoilers ahead.
Go to this time code.
Here. Yeah. I'm not going to like try to talk about a fucking movie without spoilers. That's not not what we fucking do here, people. And besides, this won't come out for another year probably at the rate that I'm releasing these at. So
you're never going to hear this.
Ever. So one of the things I really respected about the movie was that it is a very bleak movie.
Yes.
In the end.
Yes.
It is a movie where nothing goes right. And to make a movie like that you as an audience accept without it feeling just massively depressing. Like did you ever see that movie Melancholia?
No.
Never mind then. But because all the other like end of the world movies, Deep Impact, which we watched like 6 months ago and whatnot, Armageddon, which we're going to put a pin in talking about Armageddon right now because that is one of the worst movies ever made. So let's not talk about
it's real bad.
It's
Michael Bay.
The reason that this is all I'll say about it. It is a very effective movie, and there are things that are done at such a high level in that movie, which means that the things that they get wrong feel very intentional and very on purpose. And so that's what makes them very wrong. That's what makes them very problematic.
I feel like that describes Michael Bay's entire career.
Right, because if you have a Roger Corman movie where they're making the whole fucking movie in a day and a half, and they're just fucking throwing and going with everything, and there's like some weird subtext about something, you're like, so fucking what? They made this movie with fucking $30, and but when you have a movie like Armageddon where the things that are about it that are done so well, it makes all the subtext and the symbolism feel very intentional.
Right.
So, but that's another can of motherfucking worms for me.
We'll put the can back on that. Lid back on that can right now.
But all of those movies have some type of uplifting ending.
Yes.
Like shit works out. People adversity.
I literally looked at the poster for Deep Impact earlier today, and it's like cities destroyed, buildings wrecked, hope lives or some shit. I'm like, no.
Right.
No.
Right. And so this movie, to sit there for a 2.5 hour long movie and to get to the ending and it all goes to shit. And you as an audience are like, okay. And there's a certain amount of satisfaction. Like, I didn't feel unsatisfied.
No.
At the end of the movie, I felt an odd sense of contentment.
Yes.
Of, if that's how I go, that would be a good way to,
And as a matter of fact, when it got to about probably like the 3/4 of the way through the movie point, there's a thing that is about, whatever, fucking, we're not keeping spoilers.
We're not.
Like, whatever. When fake Steve Jobs, Elon Musk guy starts talking about his plan to blow up the meteor.
I love that the actor who played it was the same actor from Ready Player One.
I've never seen that movie.
It's so great.
It's so bad.
Have you fucking
No, I kind of refuse to see it because it looks like shit. But if you say it's fine, I don't know.
Well,
I've heard people say it's all right, but
maybe there's like some references in like the world and the things that you're a part of that would make it feel hacky and shitty or something.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But it didn't feel like it was stepping on anything too directly to me. Anyway,
I don't think it's like irreverent in a way that offends me or anything like that. It just kind of looked whatever.
It's fun.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Moving
Cool.
on.
I love that fucking dude, by the way, in this movie.
It's incredible.
Pitch perfect. Anyway, he lays out his plan to stop the asteroid, and not only stop the asteroid, but harvest it and make a lot of fucking money off of it.
Right.
And become the richest, entity on the planet by magnitudes. Once it got to that point, I was like, okay, NASA isn't going to solve this. If the way this movie ends is this guy and this company solving it for this reason, and it works, that's fucking bleak.
Right.
Like, it was going to go bleak one way or the other, the way that it went, or that way. And I was going to be very, very disappointed had it gone that other way.
Yeah, if it was like, yay, capitalism,
Yes.
Not even necessarily capitalism, but a very sort of specific type of capitalism.
The type that we are literally in the middle of right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really liked, there were a lot of things I think whenever I sort of, the moment that I was sure that I loved the movie, there was I can tell you the exact moment in the film was whenever Leonardo DiCaprio, Professor Mindy, that character is having the conversation with fake charismatic tech billionaire guy in like the hangar.
Yes.
And Professor Mindy is, you know, this isn't really getting peer reviewed. We're afraid that you're looking at this like a businessman.
Yeah.
And homeboy gets seriously
like
offended.
Incensed that you would deign to refer to him as a businessman.
Right. No, this isn't business. This is the next stage of evolution,
Yeah.
human evolution. And he does that whole shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then which I was like, that's very telling, because that's how those people think. And that's the problem, is that we don't just look at these people as being, oh, you're a really good businessman, you're a really good capitalist, good for you. You saw some resources and opportunity, and you moved some resources from point A to point B, and you convinced the people in point B that it was worth more than it cost you to move those resources. Good job. Way to see opportunities for value making or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, we look at them and we see them as sort of heroes and iconoclasts and outliers and blah, 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 blah.
Geniuses.
Yes. And all this sort of stuff. So I love that. And then I also loved what he said to Professor Mindy, which he was like, you think that you have these high ideals, but you're just one of these consumer types. You're a lifestyle idealist.
Yeah.
And you think that you have these high ethics and principles, but you're really just trying to avoid pain.
You're running away from pain.
Running away from pain.
Yeah.
Because at this point, Professor Mindy's been having an affair and all these sort of things. And I wouldn't love the movie if his character didn't get lost in the bullshit.
Right. He got not immediately, but pretty completely subsumed.
Yeah.
There.
Because if you were deep into your 40s, maybe your early 50s, before you were ever felt sexy,
Yeah.
Before you ever had any of it thrown at you, there's no way you wouldn't fall for that. Like, there's no way you wouldn't get lost in that. And especially if it's at that level in the film where you know, it's like, astronomer I'd like to fuck, hashtag blah, 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 blah. And like to where he's like a super celebrity. There's just no way. There's just no way you're going to be, you know, that you're going to be grounded enough to not fall for that, you know, to not fall down that rabbit hole. And so I really appreciated the fallibility of his character, and, you know, and not making it such a sort of like didactic of it felt like, because if you read it on the surface, then it's like, oh, conservatives are bad, you know, but I think that that's not how I interpret it. I feel like it's more about sort of the system by which we accrue power and by which we spread information and culture is a problem.
Yeah.
That's my read on it. And the way that we do it right now is not conducive to problem solving when they arise, which I think, given the state that we're in, that we're here at, you know, month 21 of the pandemic here, you know, and I think that it's pretty clear that our systems don't handle universal calamities very well.
Something I didn't look up about this movie is when it went into production, when he began writing it. But from what I understand, I don't understand. I heard somewhere, read somewhere, whether it's fact or not, I'm not sure, but that he had to play it up. He had to make it a bit more extreme than he initially did.
Yeah.
To stand out from reality.
Isn't that bizarre?
Because otherwise, it's such a perfect allegory for like where we're at in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and that's another sort of fascinating thing that I think that someone years from now will have a lot of fun, or there will be a lot of sociology research to do to sort of analyze that this is a movie that came out at this time and people accepted it. Like this reflects people's you know what I mean? Like
I would like to hear more about what people, just like the general public, thinks about this movie. I guess I want to look at the Rotten Tomatoes fucking user score or whatever, because this has been critically panned.
Has it really?
It's getting destroyed, pretty much.
How weird.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people say how over the top it is, how unbelievable it is, which, like, look out your window every morning, look at the news, literally.
I mean,
obviously, yes, there are differences and there are exaggerations.
Well, and this is are we upset that a movie's not believable? Is that what they're upset about? That there's a measure of unreality in a film?
Well, I mean, my assumption is that it's meant to be portraying a pretty real America, a pretty real world, all things considered.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people have problems with whatever. It's probably just very politicized as well, these opinions.
Yeah, a friend of mine was texting me about it and was like, "Yeah, conservatives really hate this movie," and I was like, "Well, I guess I don't know because I don't like." I don't like text like the people that I know that fall into that category. I don't call them up and ask them what they think about movies.
Right.
You know,
hey man, we haven't talked because we fucking hate each other right now. But have you seen this fucking movie?
I check Facebook once a week, and whenever you were, whenever you said crazy thing XYZ, I took you out of my newsfeed. But I really want to know what you think about this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I don't really know, but
yeah,
I really liked it. I guess like this, like you can you can argue the unreality or the exaggeration of specifics, but that's fine and that's stupid. That feels like arguing about the physics of a ray gun in Star Wars to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, but like the movie sets out to do a thing, and I think it succeeds.
Yeah.
Admirably.
Yeah.
And that's really, like you said, that's kind of really what matters.
To me, yeah, so absolutely. To me,
that's how I feel as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if you were trying to read it directly as an allegory for COVID, I think that you would be like, oh well, this or this, they're stretching it and this blah blah blah, and the thing that they don't understand is blah blah. Like I could see how you could do that, but I don't think that it has to be read that way.
No, that is a way that parts of it can be read.
Yeah.
But it's a much larger commentary on just how we have handled things and are likely to handle things.
Right, and I think that what I really liked about it too was there were several things, but I liked that the portrayal of the president was mostly about them being just a sort of a political opportunist.
Yeah.
It was like, well, it'll benefit me now to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it.
Jennifer Lawrence literally called her that. Yeah.
And so I appreciated that aspect of it, because by playing that up, it shows that you're not critiquing that person. You're critiquing this system that puts someone in power who strategizes in that manner.
Right, you're not critiquing their ideology.
Right. It wasn't made to be about her ideology,
Yeah.
And I also liked that. I also felt that there was a little bit of, like commentary on sexism in the fact that, that Jennifer Lawrence's character, just instantly shit on and thrown in the fucking mud.
100%.
Yeah. And
especially online.
right.
portrayal. Like she becomes this horrible meme, and how ugly she is, and how stupid she is, and then Leo DiCaprio eventually kind of gets to the same point that she was at, like ranting and raving about how we're all gonna die,
Right.
and he's like lionized for it.
Exactly. Yeah. But the amount of patience that the public had for, you know, a male professor as opposed to a young female, and you know, because it's like, well, if you got to fit in these roles, right, and you can't, like, if you're going to be a smart girl, you can't have emotion too. And so,
yeah,
but yeah.
There was commentary on a lot of different things.
Yeah,
I thought it was very nuanced in almost every way that it could have been in terms of that stuff.
Yeah, if there was one negative thing, or not really negative, but sort of a subtle thing that I wish would have been emphasized a little more. This is very nitpicky of me, but I wish that it would have been emphasized more that the bass supporting, like, if we're going to try, okay, this is an analog, right? We're doing, you know, like, this is commentary, this is allegory or whatever, that the people supporting the denialist politician were also majority middle class. Not, because there's the line where, like, Jonah Hill's like, you know, he's going, you know, where they're having the rally and they can actually see it, and, you know, the whole, like, don't look up thing. Yeah. Look up, don't look up, you know, blah, 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 all that shit. And he's like, you fucking rednecks.
They throw bottles at him eventually.
Right, and he's like, you fucking rednecks. And
yeah.
Now, I feel like that is more that's more of a commentary on how the people in those positions see their base.
Yeah, right.
Not that their base is necessarily, right? Because you also have...
That was how I took it as well.
Right. I wish that there was some other things that were a little more explicit. You do get a little bit of it where Jennifer Lawrence's character goes home and her parents are like, no politics. We're for the for the jobs that the comet will create.
Dude, when she said that, I fucking fell out of my chair.
Yeah, me too.
Are you kidding me? Like, that feels like a line that they had to write in a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we're for the jobs the comet will create.
And they were right to do so. Because holy shit.
And I feel like that's a very sort of like this, like, it's middle class. It's also middle class, right? You know, because when you're talking about like these, when you're, you know, if you want to pull on the string of fringe politics, you know, things that lead towards authoritarian, you know, I'm not just talking about the movie right now. I'm zooming way out, you know, but it's like the people who often, like, God damn it. If you think that only quote unquote stupid people or rednecks or whatever are the kind of people that vote for politicians you disagree with, then you are very ignorant and you don't understand the nature of any of this. Mm-hmm. As a corollary to that, not necessarily the same thing, the people who are, anti-Semitic, people who are Nazis, people who are, you know, legit, like, deep ethno-state white supremacists. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not talking about white supremacy in the sort of, in the cultural sense of that, you know, we have a culture that favors you being white. I'm talking like in the ethno-state, like my values explicitly, my stated explicit values are, I want a white like, I'm talking that white supremacy. Yeah. That idea, that kind of poisonous, hateful ideology exists at all education levels.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of people that misunderstand that, and they want to think like, oh, these are just poor people that got tricked. Like, these are just, you know, some like wayward youth got sweet talked by some Nazi guy, and now he thinks that's the way to go. Yeah,
that does happen, but it's not the only thing.
It's not the right. Yeah. And so, you know, pulling back those threads, I'm not I'm not saying like all people who vote conservative are fascists. That's not what I'm saying. But I just that would have been like the one thing that I would have liked, just turn that dial up just a little bit. But that's a very, very subtle political critique about it.
Well, they didn't do much in the way of like showing the actual live in-person response of the general public.
Sure.
Like there were very few scenes, like when he gets out of his car in the middle of the street and they're looking up, and they're in like a restaurant or a bar or something at some point, and they overhear him talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, you have a White House badge and all this shit. Tell us what's going on." And I think there was like one other one, but the only other time in the movie you ever hear what the general public thinks is through social media mock-ups.
Right.
Which is
that's a good point.
Which is at the same time, like, you could have done more, but also that's also how most people hear what people think.
Right. I think that it's also I feel like that what the minor thing that I said I think is honestly really beside the point and beside the intention of the film, because I think the intention of the film is really not about, it's not meant to be so historical or historical commentary. It's meant to be a critique of this of our systems of communication and power.
Yeah.
And how they do not allow for effective problem solving.
Yeah.
On a global scale.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess on that note, the part where what was like Russia, China, and India were going to launch their own what's the word?
Deflection mission.
There you go. Perfect. And then they had an explosion on the launch pad. Mm-hmm. Did you just think that, like, oh shit, they had an accident?
It seemed like, I'd have to watch it again. It seemed like there was a little bit of subtext to imply that it might have been like some espionage covert shit going on.
That was where my mind went immediately, and that was what I took from that whole scene. And then I saw other people completely going the other way. Just like, it was fucked up they had an accident. They should have had the rest of the world save us, and then we'd feel like shit. And I was like, I guess I can see that, but like, I took that to be like, Bash is going to get $130 trillion from this asteroid. They're not going to let these other countries fuck it up. They probably bombed it, is where I went.
Yeah, I think it's really smart to kind of, that they leave that kind of maybe open for interpretation, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Because it's not implausible that shit would fuck up.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
But it's also not, if they're like, well, we're willing to take a chance on the entire fucking planet dying. Oh, that was the other thing that I really loved about the movie, as far as commentary and whatever goes, is that these people, you know, the tech billionaires, you know, the president in the film or whatever, they talk the game about, it's the next stage of evolution, blah, 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 but they have a backup plan.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah.
And they are going to bounce out of this bitch, right?
Yes.
Like they have no solidarity with fellow humans. And that was, I was like, yeah, of course this fucking dickwad is willing to play these games and take the ultimate risks, but not with his own skin. And so, I appreciated that.
And then they get to the other planet 22,000 years later, and
we find out what a Brontotech is or whatever.
Well, so two things about that. One is everybody gets off the ship, and as they're showing the cryo chambers open, it's like oil tycoon, lobbyist, all this other bullshit.
Yeah,
and it's just all these super old white dudes who aren't going to be able to repopulate this planet.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's pretty fucking good.
That's pretty funny too.
The other thing is, so earlier on in the movie, fake Steve Jobs, Elon Musk is like, I can tell you how you die, you know, whatever.
Right.
You know, our algorithms have determined how you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells, who does he tell that to? The president.
Meryl Streep.
That she's going to die eaten by a Brontotech.
Like a Brontotech or Barontotech or some shit.
Whatever it is. And so you get to the end of the movie, and she gets fucking attacked by this alien, like, ostrich thing. Her face gets, like, eaten off. Pretty brutal looking for a split second there, which is kind of good. in a way, but the dude's like, oh, I guess now we know what is he like? Now we know what a Brontotech is, or
Something
like that.
like, or what was that? I guess that was a Brontotech. You know,
That's what it was. And so I saw people thinking like, oh wow, his algorithm actually could tell the future and predicted that. And I was like, I guess you can take it that way.
No.
But what I took it as is his algorithm was complete horseshit, and he's just calling it that because that's what it said.
Happened. Right.
And that kind of floored me that someone like that could be taken that way, because I was like, really?
Well, and I mean, let's say we pull on that thread, right? And let's say that the algorithm did predict that, right? Somehow, right?
Right.
In a way, that's not such a bad interpretation, because what that implies is that we're not trying to say that the technology that the Apples and the Facebooks and the Googles and the whatevers, we're not trying to say that the technology is not amazing and not impressive and not valuable and all that sort of stuff. That's not the problem. The technology and the capability of the technology is not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you are using it and how you are profiting off of it.
Yeah,
that
totally.
is the real problem.
100%.
So yeah, it's totally fine if you okay, cool, man. You got predictive fucking shit, fine, whatever. And
sure, the fact that it would be that, fine enough. However, the other side of that coin is their huge fucking 30-pod plan to go blow up this meteor crashed and burned.
Yeah, couldn't predict that.
Not even a fucking chance.
couldn't predict that.
To somehow square the circle of them having predictive AI to be able to tell shit on other planets thousands of miles away, but you can't get this.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, but also I don't think that's what they're trying to say, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that it I hadn't thought too much about it, because I was just like, oh, that's kind of silly, haha.
I hadn't really either until I saw someone comment that. I was like, how did you? Okay, yeah, but anyway, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, I also I think I like what you're saying about that. It's like, no, it was, you will get, like the algorithm's like, well, we don't know, so we're gonna say you will get,
the algorithm just mad libs some shit in there,
right? Like, well, you will get spin the wheel eaten by a spin the wheel Brontotech,
right? Random string here,
and then whenever it happens, it's like, oh, well, I guess that's what a Brontotech is.
Right, and now we call these Brontotechs.
Yeah.
And now we all get eaten by them. Nobody calls them anything, really.
Yeah, so...
Fuck.
So, yeah, rad-ass fucking movie.
Yeah. Honestly, the more we're talking about it, the more I kind of do want to go watch it again.
Yeah. There were lots of... I really... there were other little tiny things I liked about it. I liked the portrayal of the scientists. I like... You know what I mean? How like the sort of the culture shock that they had at the beginning. It almost felt like it was several different movies. You know, like the acts and the movements within the film, the tone in them was so. That's
very much how The Big
different.
Short feels too, which is what it reminds me of it. It's
Interesting.
Very diverse tonally. All the acting was fucking pretty awesome across the board.
Oh god, man, Jonah Hill. Fucking Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill was borderline annoying to me at parts, because I was like, man, you're just gonna throw this same type of joke, but also I can't fault you for it, because you're right.
It was I always have to sort of like nod my head whenever an actor that's very likable in person is able to portray a character, and I despise every breath they take on the fucking...
Right, well played.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jennifer Lawrence, fucking awesome. Leo, awesome. I didn't realize that was Cate Blanchett for quite a while.
Dude, towards the very end, I had an inkling, and I was like, "Is that?"
Yeah, I knew she was in it, but I couldn't tell it was her for a little while there.
I couldn't either. She's a goddamn chameleon.
Hell yeah. She's great. And then Timothy Chalamet, whatever how you say his name, the French dude, the kid who Jennifer Lawrence falls in love with.
Oh yeah, that
skater kid.
Yeah, that guy.
I've only seen him in like a couple things, and he's kind of annoying sometimes, but he was fantastic here. I loved him.
I feel like he always, the only times there is a thing inside of me that wants to unduly criticize that young man.
Sure.
Just because of how many older women I see fawning over him. And that is not fair to that young man, because that young man is a brilliant actor.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
everything I have seen him in, he is incredible in. He's in that movie Lady Bird, and then
I've always meant to watch that. Never
it's
have.
great.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it. And
Cool. Did you see Dune?
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either. They took it off HBO Max, so I can't.
Those motherfuckers.
Yeah, it'll be back.
And then the same woman who made Lady Bird made a version of Little Women.
Oh, okay.
And, like Allison has, like, she's read the book and she's seen, the different versions of it. But I watched that with her and it was great. I really, I'm blanking on the director's name, but I really enjoyed how she puts movies together. Those two, those are really great.
Cool.
And he's in both of those too.
Oh, right on.
So, but yeah, but it was kind of nice to see him play sort of against type, right? Because because he was like some like fucking, like dirty crust punk.
This fucking nihilist crust punk. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also like evangelical Christian. Which is very
That
good.
was another thing I really loved about the movie too.
That they didn't like lampoon that group, and it turns out they kind of became like this, not the saviors, but like they really brought things together in the end. Well, he did specifically.
But what I meant was I really liked that it didn't become like there wasn't also like sort of some grand commentary on how one should spiritually face these type of things.
Yeah.
Like there was no judgment, no commentary about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it sort of like I love that it's very moving how the scene with which they chose to end the movie.
Totally. Yes.
And it makes you think like what better way could you go out?
Yeah.
And it really gives you pause and gives you reflection about what's really valuable and what's really important, and that so that aspect was very moving to me.
Yeah, 100%. Because like ostensibly this is a comedy in a lot of ways, but it's also a movie where you can very easily imagine it happening to us.
Sure.
And so obviously you're gonna, at some point along the story, you're gonna be like, well, okay, what would I do?
Of course, right. It's a mode of reflection. Well, and that's another really interesting thing about the movie is that it's kind of a unique. It floats between a lot of genres because there's parts of its tone which are very much sort of like a science thriller, like an Apollo 13, Deep Impact. There's part of it that's like a disaster movie. But then there's a huge chunk of it which is this political satire like Idiocracy, and then there's a huge part of it that's just comedy, and there's other parts that are just drama, and you have to really respect the filmmaking that all of those things were sort of able to be tied together as one cohesive fucking movie that managed to hold on to any type of emotional potency by the time you get to the end of it. That's like because you know how that is. Like sometimes you're watching a movie and by the time you get to like the third act, the last 10 minutes, you're like, I don't really care about this anymore.
Yes.
But you guys, I could see how hard you guys, there's so many people who work so hard on this. So you know what? I'm gonna
did such a good job. I'll stick around to the end.
I'm gonna buy that improbable helicopter bullshit thing that's going on.
No, this stuck. I stuck with it right to the end.
Yeah.
And through the extra scenes as well.
So yeah, I love that movie because like I've sort of culture walked spiritually through a lot of different ways of dealing with things, or like I've been really involved in churches before, and really I identified as a Christian for a brief period of time. Most of my life I've spent that as like I'm like a like my spiritual life has been sort of it's an atheist sandwich with a little thin slice of Christianity in the middle.
Just a deli slice.
Yeah,
really
just real thin, like a number 2, but I don't have a problem. I spent a lot of time in church, like as a musician, playing actively, and as an atheist for many years before I became a Christian, and many, many, many years after. And I never had a problem with it. I never had a problem with taking it seriously. I never had a problem with seeing the value and the sacredness and all that of it, And so I always get really prickly whenever I see people just sort of, whole hog, like shitting on Christianity or shitting on religion. Like I didn't vibe with the whole like new atheist movement that happened in sort of the mid to or the late 2000s and whatnot with Dawkins and Sam Harris and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. There's seats for everyone at this table, kind of
Quite literally
vibe. Yeah, about the end of the film,
right.
So, but
But yeah, so that's like an hour on that movie, I guess.
yeah, that's about it. Yeah, something like that. So,
good movie though. Good fucking movie.
Yeah. So, the weird thing I was going to throw out there is much. So, here we go.
All right. Strap in.
Oddball number 2. Did you ever listen to Typo Negative?
Yeah, here and there.
Okay.
Not a ton, but here and there, yeah.
All right. Did you ever listen to the album October Rust?
Yeah.
Okay. So that has been consistently one of my favorite records since it came out. Okay?
I can get behind that.
I love that fucking album. It's one of the rare albums that I feel just I'm always in the mood to listen to that album. I can listen to it however many times, doesn't matter. I found out, so I got on a trip recently. I was listening to that album a lot, and I love everything about it. It's sad. I always vibed with it really hard because I was like, this is a sad man. This is not a sad boy.
This is a man, and he is sad. Yes. Peter Steele is no boy.
And so, because I was a fragile, like I needed very much to be masculine, but I also very much needed to be sad. As an adolescent. So, Typo Negative was, I think that's why I like a lot of Rammstein too, because Till's definitely a man and he's definitely emotional and weird.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like I wasn't going to be able to like go to, I love I love a few Dashboard Confessional records, but I wasn't going to be able to like go to a Dashboard Confessional song and like be my fucking big goofy weird ass, screaming those lyrics out, messing up all the fucking girls' good time.
Right.
I've done that at Blue October shows. No, I fuck up everyone's time.
Those girls aren't there to be weird and sad.
Well, Blue October show girls are different.
Dashboard girls, maybe. Well, you know what? I don't know enough about it to say.
Yeah. So anyway, Typo Negative, especially October Rust, very special record to me. Been listening to that record for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I found out 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago, that all the drums on that record are programmed.
Yo. Huh. So, that doesn't surprise me. But I didn't know that.
I couldn't sleep one night. And I ended up coming across that factoid. I stayed up for 2 hours.
After you found it?
After I found it. I was like, I need to corroborate this. I need to.
Oh, man.
Did
you find out in an interview or some shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Johnny Kelly is the fucking drummer on Typo Negative. What the fuck are you talking about? Mm-hmm. He joined, he's in the fucking, his picture's in there.
He's in the leaflet.
I've seen live footage of him playing those songs. What the fuck do you mean? He's in the music videos, man. Turns out that motherfucker didn't even play drum. Like, there were 3 records in a row. I think 3 records in a row was all programmed drums.
Wow.
He didn't get to play.
But he programmed it.
No.
No. Peter Steele do it?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because in addition to being a sad man, he's also a perfectionist.
Holy shit.
So
that surprises me less, actually.
Now, the other thing about it, though, is that because in 1997, it cost if you're going to be that level of perfectionist, right? Doing drums is going to take a long fucking time.
Dude, it's a big fucking deal when Thomas had the drum kit from hell and that was 8 some odd years later when he put that on Catch 33, I think was the first one that he did it on.
I think that was 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
2004 or 5.
Yeah, something like that. And I feel like that was a big deal at the time. So
especially for well, it's like the other thing is that Typo Negative came out of that goth strand.
Right.
And that sort of, you know what I mean? And so fucking,
I just mean programming drums as a general happening on an album.
Well, but if you come out of there were albums in the 80s that had programmed drums all over them, and in Depeche Mode or
sure, but you could always, it was pretty obvious that that's what that was.
Sure.
I guess that's what I'm getting at, because the drums on Catch 33 didn't necessarily sound.
They sounded like Meshuggah fucking drums.
Yeah, and if you didn't know that the Typo Negative drums were programmed for years and years.
So the reason that I think that I didn't know was because I first heard that record when I was 13 or 14. You
just kind of took it for what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that sort of just became, I always thought that the drums sounded really interesting. And I was like, man, fucking Johnny Kelly, man. Fuck, dude.
He's got the vibe. He's got the sound.
And
I think I'm with you, though, because I'm thinking of, the song that I've listened to the most is Creepy Green Light.
It's not on that record.
It's not on that record.
But I think that does have programmed drums. I think that's on World Coming Down.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that has a very specific sound that I always thought was interesting in the same way. And so that's why I say I'm, not surprised.
Right. I think they were programmed, sort of very organically. They weren't, they were, I think it was
him sitting there actually doing it.
I mean, I'm sorry, it's a Typo Negative song.
Yeah.
So, but I also sort of think that there's an aspect to it that is, I bet if you tap Peter Steele on the shoulder in 1997 and you're like, hey, yeah, we could do these drums and we can do them to the level of precision that you want it and get it all sound exactly the way you want, and it's going to take 3 weeks of studio time, and it's going to cost $30,000. I think he would be like, that's a lot of cocaine. You know how much cocaine I can get with 30 fucking grand? No. I'll fucking program those drums.
Right.
I'm going to go to my fucking apartment and program those drums. Fuck you.
On cocaine.
And so, that kind of shit is a factor in things. And also, when you record drums that way, if you decide to change something later, it's way easier to fucking fix that shit. You're not going to be able to do that if you recorded shit in a fucking live room.
Sure.
So. But anyway, man, it totally fucking blew my mind.
That's wild, yeah.
It gave me a fucking crisis for a few days.
How often do you... I mean, I guess that's the kind of thing I've never really discovered, because nobody
turns out
programs a fucking guitar. You can tell when it's a synth. So there's no mystery there for me.
Yeah, but sort of like.
Do you know this fucking Dire Straits album was Mark Knopfler programmed this acoustic guitar? Can you believe it?
I'm trying to like. It's like, do you know in the middle of this Yanni song that he's using a guitar sample on a keyboard? I'm imagining something like that. I don't know.
You know what? I guess there is a time when I've thought that, and it's specifically when I first discovered Infected Mushroom.
Oh, okay.
Because that stuff sounds very processed and like precise, and
yes, it does.
Specific in a weird way. But they play live instruments, so I'm pretty sure they just play guitars.
Gotcha.
So I guess I don't know one way or the other, but
right, yeah,
in the studio.
Well, and the thing is, like now, it's not shocking. Like there's none of it. It's like, oh wow, you have a really good fucking MIDI acoustic guitar sound on that fucking keyboard. Oh wow, or like, oh, you really had an acoustic guitar in the middle of your DJ set. Oh cool, wow. Like nothing is shocking now, right? It's all so, the technology has gotten so small and everything sounds so fucking good. But in 97,
exactly,
or 96, whenever that fucking record was made, it's not the case.
Right.
So, like the fact that you could program effective drums on a rock record in the fucking 90s, that in and of itself blew my fuck. I was like, what? But then you go and you start looking at threads and like there's all sorts of like audio engineer types. It's like, I think it's objectively clear that record sounds like trash. and it's one of like my favorite sounding records.
That's just, come on.
Yeah, I mean, they've got their criteria by which they're judging things and whatever.
Well, it's not fucking objective then, is it? Fuck you.
Fair enough. So anyway.
Interesting, though.
That was my spitball. All right. So the topic of today, we're going to have our final.
We're going to close out these video games.
Our final round.
We're going to put the controller down.
Yeah. Turn
the system off. We're going to save our game first, though.
Yeah.
And then we're going to chunk the memory card out the window. So this was the final set, which was spanning from, the years that I left open were 2013 to current day. Mm-hmm. But I think the earliest one's 2014 on the list. I think I had one that was 2013 and then I left it off or something like that. So 2014, let's say, to 2021. Most of that falls sort of right in the middle there.
Okay.
2016, 2017. Just a good crop of years for game soundtracks, basically. So, is there somewhere where you would like to start with this?
Okay. I'm going to start with...
I guess one thing.
Yeah.
I mentioned that I was going to try to keep it at about 2.5 hours, which I did between the Spotify and the YouTube playlist.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you went and looked at any of the others, at the soundtracks themselves on the Spotify. I didn't add them up, but they're like, if you just go look at any of the individual soundtracks, like it's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
It's a lot.
3.5 hours. 4 hours. There is a lot of music that I had to cull.
Bless your soul.
And well, I guess that depends on what you thought of it. So anyway, yeah, let's hear what you.
I haven't disliked any of this video game music. It all goes down so easy.
Cool, good. That's what I was hoping for.
And I guess because of sort of their design.
Mm-hmm.
So there were sort of a few rando questions. So you sort of answered this in your sort of FAQ at the beginning in the Google Docs, but I wanted to sort of poke your brain about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, poke your brain about it. Pick your brain about it. What? I don't know.
You can poke it if you want. You can pick your brain and you can pick your nose. Anyway.
But you can't always trust what you hear and see unless you see for yourself.
See it for yourself. God damn it. Good pull.
Get your pool. Mini pool. Mini pool.
Oh. Go watch 3 if you haven't, people.
Yeah, we'll have some Pantera, some Tampora
Tampora
episodes.
That Tampora band.
All right. So these games, right? So this music. Now, I wanted to sort of ask you this question. It's like sort of open platform here, not an open platform game.
No
God
judgment
damn it!
here.
Fuck. I don't stay up this late anymore. I'm all punch drunk. So did you go through and did you find music that okay? I'm gonna find some of my favorite music that I've heard while playing video games the past 30 years or whatever, or did you say I am going to find my favorite video games that I've played the past 30 years and grab the music from those?
It was sort of a mix of those. And also what I thought was some of just the objectively good music from these time periods. I definitely couldn't go full second option because a lot of the games that I love don't have great music that you'd want to just sit and listen to.
Okay.
Like there was specifically stuff that I left off even this last playlist where I'm like, I really like the music that's in this game, but it's not going to come across great to listen.
So
to.
what's an example of some of your favorite games that you didn't include in this grand four-parter here?
I don't have an answer for that question. There's too many games to list. Is my answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you just asking like what are my favorite games?
Yeah, sure.
I don't have an answer for that question. A lot of them are on this list.
Yeah,
I guess.
Sure.
To some extent or another. There's too many to list.
But plenty that are not represented here.
Tons, yes.
So these games here are not necessarily meant to these are not necessarily like, hey, these are my favorite games. Some of them are your favorite games.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily that. So some of them are like, okay, well, this is a cool game, but the music is really special here. Some of them are that? Question mark?
A couple of them. I like all of the stuff on all these playlists that I've made have been games that I've played and enjoyed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of them I didn't like super fall in love with, but yeah, I played enough to have enjoyed a lot, to have liked the music a lot.
I see.
If that makes sense. So there wasn't anything on these lists where like it has critically acclaimed music and I put it on here because I thought it should be on here.
Right. We're not trying to make a definitive thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because who fucking wants to do all that work?
Yeah. Somebody's done that and I don't care about it.
Right. Yeah. Like someone else can do all that work, and no matter what, if you do that kind of work, it's going to still be flawed.
Yeah.
So fuck it.
So
not gonna do it.
Right. This was music that was either that was important to me, whether it's because I liked it a lot, or whether it's because it influenced my tastes somewhere along the way, or whether because it showed me a new type of music that I didn't know before, or it inspired me to create stuff that I went on to create.
Like what?
Like some of the chiptune shit that I showed you a couple years ago.
That the world will never hear.
That the world will never hear. I'll do something with it. I want to remake it.
I remember you showing it to me, man. That shit was cool.
Cool, yeah. And so stuff like that, that was around, was that like probably 17 or 18, 19? No, when did you get married? 2016.
Yeah.
So probably right around there. I think I had probably come off
No, it was after that.
Was it after that?
It was definitely after that, because it was whenever I was like conjuring up the ideas about the label, and it was whenever I think it would have been in 2018.
Okay. So like one of the big
2017 maybe.
That sounds about right, I think.
Yeah, because 2017 was the year that I sort of like I really started thinking about what I was going to do after I left the music school. And that was whenever I got all the All Severed stuff handled. That was whenever I...
Right. I'm conflating two different things. I'm conflating your bachelor party at Jet's place when we were hanging out.
We didn't work on your chiptunes there.
Did not have it there. But at your apartment your first apartment with Allison.
Yeah.
We did. That's what I'm thinking.
I had like a birthday party or some shit like that, and you were there, and because the program you used was like an online thing, so
Yes.
you like logged in and you like showed some people that were there, and it was like, oh, are these chip tunes? Did you make some chip tunes?
Somebody rolled in there and was like, I love chip tunes, and I was that's a weird thing to say, but okay.
There's a friend of mine named Michael Curtin.
I was like, I appreciate that, but okay.
Yeah, he's a righteous dude.
Cool. I did appreciate that. Okay, so to put that in context, then Undertale came out in 2015, and that, among other things on this list, heavily
really
gave me a nice push to go. You can do some really fucking cool shit.
That's awesome
with these sounds.
Because of all of the ones on here, Undertale was the one was like, well, I don't get this. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to all this shit again.
Dude, that's yeah.
And then I was like, well, maybe if I watch the gameplay footage, it's gonna help.
That's not gonna help anything.
No, man, I had to turn it off. I was like, this is fascinating and this is intriguing, but I can't keep watching this.
It's just kind of nonsense if you don't know or if you're not interested in what's going on there.
It seemed like the dialogue reminded me of that fucking book that Justin and Josh wrote.
Yeah, okay.
Like this,
I get that.
Like this fucking like steampunk James Joyce bullshit kind of thing going on where
just like constant non sequiturs
but they're not non sequiturs. Like it's related, but it's like it's not using language in the way that we typically use it, where it's like, I have an idea, I'm trying to express the idea, here is the sounds that are associated with that idea and those emotions, blah. It is bouncing off of the way that the symbols for the idea, of what the symbols for the ideas are, right? So what I mean is something hijinks and low jinks, right? Like that kind of,
It's being very silly.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not random. Like there are threads that go through it.
Yes.
And so, but those threads are not like, because low jinks is not a fucking word, but hijinks is. And if hijinks is such a thing, then why shouldn't low jinks be a thing?
See, that's like, I feel like that's that distinction that right there is like a fundamental aspect of how I think about things. Like to me, pulling that out and thinking about it that way is just innate. Like I have never once had to make that distinction, but I understand when people do. To me, I'm just like, of course, that's funny. That's just how it is.
I laughed too.
Right.
But
for me, it's just like, yeah, of course.
It's yeah. Like
not that that's good or bad. I don't know. But.
Sure. Yeah. I think it might just be sort of an outpouring of this specific sense of humor that is developed and whatnot. But but yeah, it's a thing that and like the sounds of the game, like this is beautiful. Is beautifully and ridiculously absurd. And the music on that was really cool. But it I'll hit. We'll go back and catch the other one. Yeah, but since we're here, right? So I was like, so what's with this retro stuff? And then I had a question, but I'm gonna come back to it. Let's see. So there's lots of variety in the Undertale stuff.
Totally.
And what's impressive about the amount of variety is that it all does maintain sort of a minimal sort of vibe. Which there's a lot of variety in the gravity blast. It's not blast. No, that's a drum thing.
That's a drum thing.
Yeah.
Gravity Rush.
Gravity Rush 2. Yeah. So there's a lot of variety there. But that is the exact opposite of minimal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in Undertale, it is, and so
it's a stylistic variety.
Yes, yes, and all of them are executed very well.
They really are.
but yeah, I didn't have like a lot to say, you know. It's like, oh, well, this is an, you know, Ghost Fight. I'm like, this is a nice funky swing track.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, this Bony Trussels is a banger.
Yeah, it is.
And then the song Hotel, I guess that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this kind of reminds me of Take 5 a little bit.
Take 5.
So Take 5 is a jazz tune. It's very well by the Dave Brubeck Quartet. It's very well known for being in 5/4. Womp womp womp. But
oh yeah. Right.
But the melody, you know, and like just the vibe and the melody of it, I was like, there's something that pulls on that thread for me.
Yeah, 100%. Sort of like a loungy sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
And this, you know, that track's especially famous because it's in 5. That's something Dave Brubeck was very good at, was writing jazz in odd meter.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the Megalovania, I was like, I've heard. Why do I feel like I've heard that?
Probably have.
Okay.
It's. I think it's just become a meme at this point.
Okay.
There are like video essays on the fandom for this game.
No shit.
This game is unbelievably popular.
Okay.
It's pretty wild. Yeah. It really hit the. It really hit a certain like type and like a certain generational section of people at just the right time, I think. Like in my description of what the game is, I put like RPG, humor, and sincerity, I think.
You did.
And so
You did.
you fucking did. It's a very sincere game in it as eccentric as it is.
What do you mean by sincere? Like what? So what is an example of an insincere game?
I don't have well, most games, I guess, take things very lightly and don't. I think that's not the question to ask. I think the question is just why is this game sincere?
Well, I'm going to double down a little bit.
Okay.
So is a game like Binding of Isaac, is that what you would call a sincere game?
Sure. Like, insofar as it tries to be. But it's not. This game, yeah, I don't think that Undertale portrays like weird characters, but it's not making fun of them. It portrays
Okay.
it's not like a commentary on mental illness or anything like that. It's not anything that serious, but it's just like it's okay. Things are okay. Like it's okay to be you or whatever, to some extent. Maybe it's like understanding in a weird way. Sincere, I think, is probably the best way to say it.
Yeah,
like,
I'm trying to poke your brain about it.
Yeah,
because I've made music. I feel like I know what I mean when I say music. Some music is sincere and some music isn't sincere.
Uh-huh.
I haven't made video games.
Right.
So I don't know what it means to put yourself into a video game, right? To make that story personal and authentic, or the not the story.
Okay.
Right? Like, because I guess like the story of Binding of Isaac is very personal, perhaps sincere as you're using that word, but it's very inflated, right?
Well, I guess
It's very grandiose. So
hadn't
maybe it's in a like 9 Inch Nails is sincere, but it's very intense and over the top.
Right.
And it's Slipknot records are sincere too, but it's very it's sincere in a very narrow emotional framework. It's a different kind of sincerity than, I don't know, your favorite singer, songwriter, artist kind of thing.
I guess I hadn't thought about it on all of these different axes, actually. Because I kind of yeah, it's not necessarily just to do with like the story. It's just like how the characters come across and how they behave towards one another and how they regard like the world around them. Like just things are the way they are, and that's how they are.
So it's not trying to let's try to unpack this a little bit because this is interesting.
Yeah.
So if we talk about insincere art, right? So what when we think about insincere art, we think about art that is mindlessly adhering to the frameworks with like its genre frameworks, right? Here's an example that doesn't throw anyone under the bus. When we were in All Severed and we would, play around the state or whatnot, we would sometimes see bands and it was just very clear to us that they were just taking the songs that they had covered. Like, oh, we're just going to do like a Pantera song. Right, or we're just gonna do a Norma Jean song, or it was though like there wasn't any attempt at all for individual expression. No attempt at all to be unique. It was just where I'm gonna go out and do my best to make the sounds that I hear on records, right? Because that's what I need to do because I want to be in a band like this and that's how I want to be perceived, blah, 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 blah. Now, there is an art to that, and I'm not trying to like play the elitism card. I'm just trying to like use an example where I'm not like, fuck Coldplay or whatever, But this idea of, this is what I mean. Let me reel it in.
Yeah.
Well, why are we going to do this in the song at this part? And if the answer is anything other than, well, that's what sounds good to me, then you're wasting your time. You need to go the fuck home. If you are like, well, why are we going to do this in this part? It's like, well, that's what bands like us do.
Yeah.
That's what happens in this kind of song. That's what if that's your answer, it's like, well, no, that's this kind of game. We're trying to make this kind of game because these kind of games make money. We're trying to make this kind of music because this kind of music makes money. What are the characteristics of this kind of thing? It's da 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 da.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, this game gives no fucks about referencing anything else and being true to anything other than itself.
Yeah, that's a valid read. It actually. Not directly, but it's heavily influenced by another type of game, which is or not a type of game, but if you've ever heard of the game Earthbound,
no,
on Super Nintendo.
Negative.
Okay, it was a sort of not super popular JRPG that came out. It was known for being like weird and quirky back in like 1992 or whatever the fuck, but heavily influenced by that game. So I'm thinking about it more. Maybe sincere is not the right word, but maybe it just has a lot of heart and soul. Is what I should have said probably. If that helps anymore, probably not.
Why
much
not?
More.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I think so. I mean, I don't think that those terms have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Me neither.
But maybe that's a more direct. Because I get what you're getting at with like insincere versus sincere art. And I don't know that necessarily applies.
It's not what you're trying to say.
In all cases, yeah.
I see.
Because like you can have other games where they're trying and they mean what they're saying by putting all the art and the technology and the music and everything into it, but it just doesn't work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think one aspect of what makes this game have all the heart and soul that it does is because it's largely done by one dude who made the game and did all the soundtrack work. It's like got his stamp all over it.
I see.
And it's just sort of a weirdly feel good type of thing, which is kind of interesting because just talk about the game itself is like you can go through, it's an RPG, so you get into like random battles and stuff every so often.
Right.
You can play the game just normal, where you just kind of do what you do, and if the thing you're fighting, if you choose the right option and it dies, it dies. If not, whatever. But you can play like the game where you don't kill anything. It's a pacifist run, and that gives you a certain type of gameplay and ending and all this stuff. Or you can do the genocide run where you kill everything. And the things you're fighting are like ostensibly kind of friendly and just chill. And so if you're going in there killing them all, it's pretty fucked up. But otherwise, you're just kind of making friends with them in a weird way.
Okay.
That's how you can look at it. It's quirky.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very weird. It's a very weird game.
Right, because most gameplay does seem to revolve around violence.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
You know.
So I think just that struck a chord with a lot of people.
Interesting.
And it's great. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
But
so that game, the music for that game, inspired you.
Yeah.
To create your own music in that. Not necessarily like that music,
right.
But it's just like.
It's like if you wanted to do some sort of. Not low tech, but it's 8-bit, I guess, is what I basically was doing at the time. Chiptunes, like there are ways to make it very good and interesting. Not that I didn't think other music in the past was like, but this was so well done that it just kind of kicked me in the ass. I think it kicked a lot of people in the ass,
right?
Honestly, but
because it's really minimal and it's also really effective.
It's extremely effective. It's extremely like this whole soundtrack is like 3.5 hours long. It's like 100 tracks. I think I put 20 of them on here.
Fuck.
But most of them are like, not most of them, but like a lot of them are like around a minute. Like they're not that long.
Sure.
Because they repeat a lot in the game. I wish more game soundtracks did this. Instead of putting like, here's a 5-minute track where we repeat it 3.5 times. Just do this. That's all you need to do. Right? That gets the point across.
Right. Like here's a motif.
That's really what I want. So that you say that is interesting. This soundtrack is like a case study in how to do leitmotif. Because I tried to get it across a bit on what I've added on here, but if you just go through the full soundtrack, you'll just hear the same themes reworked and recycled and rejiggered, woven in and out of the other themes. There are like, I don't know, 4 or 5 main themes, and they're reused in such interesting different ways. It's mind-blowing how like this soundtrack is insane.
It was, yeah. I really enjoyed everything I heard on it, and not just enjoyed it, but it was like I'm gonna have to come back to this.
Sweet.
I'm gonna have to, because there is, I hit a saturation point on it. Like the first, like sort of like after like 6 or 7. I was like, okay, man, like this is all great, but this is all different than the previous. Like I can't get my bearings here,
Right. And if you don't sit around listening to the shit, it's like a bit harder to penetrate as well.
That's true. So, cool. So there was sort of we'll back up a second. And so there was a Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
Which is, I went and looked at the gameplay for it, and I said, this looks joyous to play.
Yeah. It is. It's hard, so it can get really frustrating, but it is. It's a good feel-good sort of thing.
Yeah, I was, so my sort of brain dump on this, but yeah, like it's obvious retro feel, the music's fun as hell. And just overall, it really kind of blows my mind how much the sort of the melodies, this doesn't just apply to Shovel Knight, this kind of applies to a lot of this stuff. But how sort of like the melodies and the way that these songs are put together just so much mimics the like funk fusion jam band music. And I have to speculate that if the reason for that is that these musics, because there's two as far as I see, there's two possibilities. Either there's like a common lineage, like they're ultimately derivative from the same, like a similar source, right? And there's probably some of that, right?
Sure.
But I think that it might have more to do with that these musics are trying to serve a similar function, which is be an engaging, engrossing background that creates a certain type of, that has a certain type of trance-like quality that keeps you engaged, but allows for you to have an experience.
Yeah, I think that's like dead on. Probably on both counts. I'm willing to bet more the second than the first, but I think you're
What
right.
do you mean by second than the first?
The two things you just listed.
Oh yeah, of like the lineage and then
I'm sure there's some of that, like you said, but I think the second one is like you're writing a game soundtrack. Like that's kind of probably one of your main goals a lot of the time.
Right.
Is to do exactly that.
Right. Have like here's, this is sort of it's almost like a thread to engage one or more of your senses so that your mind can go out.
Right. Because a lot of times when I probably said it before on one of these game episodes, but like a lot of times when I just sit and listen to the soundtrack, I will picture in my head, or like I'll get the feeling that I had when I was playing a certain part of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're playing the part of the game that the music's in, the music, if it's done well, it will like propel you. It will like intensify the experience, right? And I think that's part of it.
Right.
Is exactly that.
Right. Yeah, like if you've that's what I think about. It very much reminds of the feeling of, like a really good lettuce show, because you listen to the band's music, like you listen to the record output and you're like, oh, these are really groovy, funky tunes with some cool melodies, and this is just a cool vibe, right?
Yeah.
But live, it's a totally different animal, and it does and that's one of the things I love so much about that funk / jam band music, is that it is trying to facilitate the audience having a certain experience.
Right.
But you're trying, so you're always trying to balance these two things of like keeping it really interesting, right? And part of keeping something interesting is keeping it unique.
Right.
But also like, well, we got to make sure this goes down easy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we want to engage enough of your brain so that you stay engaged and you keep paying attention, but we don't want to engage so much that you're like having to think.
Right.
And I feel like video game music is trying to pull on similar threads.
I think so, yeah.
And so that's probably why it feels like there's so much overlap to me.
I think you're totally right. Like, to me, the best game music will do that exact thing. It'll, like, transport you back to what it was that you were seeing and thinking at the time that you experienced it. And then while you're thinking and experiencing it, you're picking up the beats that the music is dropping for you, essentially. Is like the little unique things that pop out and that make you say, oh, shit, what was that? Oh, that was cool.
Right.
So I think it goes both ways.
Right, because you can't just have just merely functional music, because that's almost like a bag with the bottom cut out of it. It's not going to hold on to anything.
Yeah.
You can't store any experiences in that music if it's not memorable, if it doesn't have anything,
Yeah.
And
it can be detrimental even, because if it's going to repeat and you're going to hear it a lot and it's not engaging or interesting, like you're going to be tired of it really quick.
Right.
I guess put you off the game,
I guess we're sort of like also intuitively talking, or not intuitively, but sort of adjacently, accidentally talking about nuances of film scoring as well.
Sure, yeah.
But so then another thing about some of this is just rando percussion talk. It made me have this thought, particularly the sort of the composition on the Shovel Knight tunes, of it's interesting to think about the functions of the sounds in the drum set, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like, why do you play the hi-hat part on the hi-hat and the snare part on the snare, right? Like, why don't you play like eighth notes on the snare and the backbeat on the hi-hat, right? Or whatever. Like, why is it what it is, right?
Yeah.
And again, to me, it sort of seems like there's two answers to that. One is it's maybe there's a cultural reference, like, well, we're used to hearing that snare sound in those places. We're used to hearing this sound in those places, right? So that's where you do those sounds. But then it also makes me wonder if there is sort of an aspect of, well, what you need to do the hi-hat thing, quote unquote, is a sound that is within a certain frequency range that has a certain character.
Yeah.
And what you need to do the snare thing is a sound that's in a certain frequency range and has a certain character.
Yeah.
And so, but what those sounds actually are is completely arbitrary.
Right.
As to how they can function in the music. And so yeah, that's the thought I had.
I identify tremendously with that second one for sure, because like that's how, like whenever I am writing music like that, like that is how I think about it. That's how I approach it exactly. Whereas like it doesn't really matter, like just what's gonna sound good here.
Right. Because once you get out of the confines of like, I'm a person having to fucking play this, and I'm playing on a set of sounds that has 100 years of history behind it.
Yes.
You know, so because there's a symbiotic relationship with the culture of the drum set. There's a symbiotic relationship with one to the physicality of how to do all that shit at the same time. And also with technology that allows you to put things in certain places to be able to do them ergonomically.
Sure.
Right? Like,
yeah,
you know, I could talk about that for quite a bit, but I'm going to digress. But there's, you know, like you weren't able to have one guy play the bass drum and the snare until the technology was there to make a bass drum pedal. Right?
Yeah.
You know, you weren't able to have all these toms and shit until the technology was there. And it was economical to have stands that could put all those toms in places where you could reach them ergonomically.
Yeah.
You know, like, so, but by the time though each one of those advances happened, there was already culture and tradition and momentum carrying it into those things, you know? So you're not going to like, oh, well, shit, I can play the bass drum now. Let me leave all of this marching repertoire of the snare behind and just do bass drum shit. No, it all carries over, you know? So it's always interesting to hear someone use drumish sounds, but they're not confined to, you know, well, I have to do this with my right hand and my left hand because a snare's in front of me, and I wouldn't have a hi-hat in front of me because I'd have to put my foot in front, you know, like your hi-hat has to be here because your foot needs to be on it, and your bass drum needs to, you know, it's all confined to just the ergonomics of the body.
Right.
So...
okay, that's interesting to think about, because I've always thought about it in terms of how you place those sounds within the music, but I never thought about it from a, like, physicality perspective.
Well, and
but that makes total sense.
Especially when you think about, especially traditionally, right? Like, not just, okay, well, I need to record these sounds in this way to make this composition, right? Because if that's all you're doing, man, so fucking what, man? I only got to hit it one time. It's totally fine if a drum's up here over my head or some shit like that, right?
Right.
But if you think about it as far as the function of the drum set, that you're keeping time, man. You're keeping people dancing and shit like that. Whatever you're doing, you need to be able to do it for hours.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like,
it needs to be economical.
Right. Like, I physically can't put the ride cymbal directly in front of me because I have a fucking bass drum here that I have to play with my fucking foot. And so my ride cymbal is going to be on this side. So I'm going to play it with just one hand.
Yeah.
You know, so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, listening to particularly one of the Shovel Knight tunes, there was a certain like snare where a second snare sound was functioning kind of as a hi-hat.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
I'm gonna go back and listen to it in that context. That's cool.
So, all right, one more sort of global question about this.
Uh huh.
So, what's up with all this retro shit? So
I told you, I think after the first episode or in the first episode that this shit would be coming back at some point, and it has come back in a big way.
So, was this part of a trend? Or okay, I don't mean that in a diminutive sense.
Yeah,
Was this a thing that was just happening, or did you just happen to particularly be into retro games?
It was a thing that was happening.
Okay.
I'm like, I love to find a good retro game. It's really, really satisfying to find a good one that's done well, that feels good, that sounds good, that all this stuff.
Do you feel like it's really difficult to do that?
Yeah, definitely. But it very much was a thing that was happening also. As tools got to the point where you can much more, not just easily, but more reliably, like, put together a good game in this style.
Right. And does that have to do with what you're talking about of like the indie game surge and whatnot too? Does that intersect with that idea?
Yeah, totally. Because indie games have always sort of been around, but there was a huge surge around the sort of 2010-ish time, and they only got bigger and bigger, and more people looked at that and said, and also it was like a generational thing, right?
Sure.
People who had grown up with that shit, like Ka-chunk.
What was that, guys?
Intermission time.
Got my AC remote.
Oh, fuck.
No.
It's all coming apart. Hey, it's also a big generational thing. Like, people who grew up playing NES and Super NES games with,
right,
awesome pixel art were growing up and making games now.
Right. And like, if you it's very easy to, like, you're not going to if you have limited resources, it's advantageous for you to try to create art that's in a style that's a few decades old.
100%. 100%. Because it does not take nearly the effort. In some senses.
It takes a different kind of effort and a different kind of expertise, in the sense that your barriers to entry are not solely monetary.
Right, like, straight up, it's just not as expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's cheaper to make an old school raw sounding death metal record than it is to make a record that sounds like cattle decapitation.
Totally. And, like, there are games that put tremendous amounts of effort and probably resources into creating, like, ridiculous pixel art. Like, it doesn't look like anything that could have been on the Super Nintendo, for example.
I see.
Like, it looks modern, but it's pixel art.
I see.
Shit like that happens.
Sure. Yeah,
it's more rare, but, like, yeah. So yeah, it was very much a function of timing and also just the trend
Gotcha.
sort of bubbling up. Shovel Knight in particular is very based on partially like Mega Man,
right,
but also DuckTales.
Fuck,
strangely enough,
that game is so good. Yes, you're totally, because the jumping with the cane.
Exactly.
Fuck. Ah!
Exactly.
Holy shit.
I was hoping you would know what that was, so that's perfectly good. Yeah.
Bro.
When they were making this game, like, they cited, this was a big Kickstarter game. They directly cited, like, we're going to make a fucking DuckTales game. Like,
dude,
more or less.
I remember as a kid playing the fucking DuckTales game and being like, why is the DuckTales game so fucking good?
It was a Konami game, and Konami was making killer games back then. But,
fair enough.
But, yeah. There you go. So.
Fuck.
Direct inspiration there.
Wow, I'm glad I flipped through enough of the gameplay to
See the shovel getting bounced.
The shovel bit. Yeah.
It's a fucking great game. Yeah.
Shit. Okay. All right. That's badass. Okay, so the next one, I guess we can talk about is Nier Automata.
Okay.
That's the next one in the list.
That was the next one on the list. Yeah.
So is this a sequel to another? Like have we talked about another game like this already?
Yeah, we talked about Nier 1.
Okay.
Last time.
Okay, that's
So
what I thought.
It's not a sequel per se, but it is
this the one with the weird lyrics and shit?
Yeah.
Okay. Ha ha!
Yes.
I knew it. Okay.
Nailed it. But it is the next game from that same guy.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Very, very similar thematically, as you could imagine. Very similar musically, as you can hear.
So, I listened to music and I was like, okay, yeah, this big fucking epic world beat feel or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool, but it felt pretty digestible. You know what I mean? And then I was like, okay, what's up with these fucking lyrics and these vocals?
Yeah.
So I just now remember that there was that whole, like, hey, create a language. Is that what that shit was? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was less so like the first game, the entire soundtrack was in weird languages to some extent, and sung by the same woman. This soundtrack, they divvied up the duties a lot more, and she sings maybe like a third of it, and then this other girl sings about a third of it.
Got it.
And then the rest has some lyrics or not any at all, that sort of thing.
Got it.
So there's much more variety on here. And with the stuff I added on here, only one of the tracks, Amusement Park, has that same girl on it.
Okay.
Everything else is different at this point.
Cool. Yeah, so as we get into these other ones, there's a lot of examples where if you were to watch this gameplay without the sound on, the music that you imagine being there, or the gameplay that you imagine going with this music, it just does not fucking match. And it dramatically affects your perception of the gameplay when hearing this music. This is one of those.
Totally. If I just played this game and this soundtrack wasn't there, nah, man.
Well,
not even close.
So something I noticed, and I didn't like watch all of it, right? But I watched sections and I skipped around. And so what I noticed, I mean, I listened to all the music that was in the playlist, but in the gameplay video, right?
Yeah, because I put like hours long gameplay videos just
right
to skim through.
So there's like there's almost like an inversion where like the flying combat game was like this like crazy like it was real epic and real. I mean, not epic is not the right word, but it's very like it's very emotional music. And you're like flying around shooting a big robot or whatever, it's very, it's pulling on weird emotional strings. But then there's music that you would expect to be like really kind of tense when you're doing like a one-on fight with some shit, and it's like kind of like just bumbly incidental music.
Yeah.
And it's like, what, like, I'm so confused with what this music is trying to inform me and telegraph to me to feel about how I am experiencing the this game. Like, I'm supposed to be like kind of melancholic and reflective while I'm flying this fucking ship, blasting up a fucking robot and shit.
Yeah.
And
so I think that just speaks to the big problem with doing these lists in the first place, which is the context that you don't have. I think that makes all the difference in the world.
This is not a criticism.
No. I'm just saying that I think that's why that there is that big disconnect, and it makes total sense that there would be.
I am mostly trying to say that this is this playing these games coupled with this music seems like such an incredibly novel experience.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
Like I'm
Agreed.
I am trying to say that watching these gameplay video, what was presented to me, the combination of the gameplay and the sound was something that was beyond my imagination. I would not have been able to conjure something that, and so,
Gotcha.
you know, and I guess so. Like with a game like this, like you as the player, like you, Robert,
Yeah.
as the player, so. Like, what appeals to you about this game? Like, why do you like this game?
Because of exactly what you're describing, actually. This weird, like, dissonance that also happens to come together and work in a unique way.
Okay.
That most games cannot pull off. Most games don't try to pull stuff like this off. But this game pulls it off and does it better than... anyone else. This series of games specifically, they pull off this like weirdly at once epic but melancholy and reflective and exciting but depressing vibe.
Yeah.
And it has that sensibility, and that's what the whole game is. That's what the game is built around. That's what it's about. That's woven into the gameplay and the story and the characters and the music and the down to the structure of the game, which I was trying to think about how to, because I can't describe what this game's about. It won't. I can't do that. It won't work. But I can give you a general overview of a quick overview of the structure of the game and why the structure of the game is reflective of those qualities exactly. So you play through the game as these two characters. You play through it once. You get to the end. They're two like companion characters. The one has to kill the other one at the end because he's become infected with this thing. You play through it again because once you finish the first time, you play through it again as the other character. You see things differently along the way, and you get to the end, and you have to be killed by your companion again. But you've met this other character. You start a third time, and you play as the third character. And the character you played from playthrough 1 gets killed by this third character because she's going to die anyway, and stuff happens, and then the second character sees that and goes crazy. And so you've got this third character versus this second character, and you go through to the end of that, and you have to keep going through these sections. It only repeats once, and you go through different sections each time. So at the end, they fight each other, and you have to decide which one you're going to play as during this fight, and then therefore also who's going to win the fight. And if you play through that, finish it, get that ending, go back and play it again, play through the other character, get both endings, see the whole thing, you're given a choice. You're not given a choice yet. Everyone dies, basically. Let's say that. Just everyone fucking dies. And then it is told to you that, hey, if you wanted to, you could like restart this cycle, because it turns out this whole thing was a cycle, and it's meant for the cycle to keep perpetuating itself. But there's a hope there that things could be different. And that's a novel thing. That's kind of a beautiful thing, that things could be different. And that's sort of the theme of the game, is this hope in this face, in the face of like sort of perpetual despair that things could be different. That's the general theme. There's way more nuance to it than that.
Yeah.
But so you get to the very end of the game, and there are these sections throughout the game where you're sort of like hacking, quote unquote, and you're like a little asteroids ship going through and shooting like things. The credits section of the game, the credits are coming down, you're the little ship, and you're destroying the credits as they come down. And then they start coming more and more and more, faster, and you can't keep up with them, and you die eventually. I think you can technically beat it, but most people are going to die. So you die during this credit sequence, and it says, "Do you want to start over?" And you say, "Okay," and then eventually it's like, "So and so wants to help you," and it's a name that looks like it might be another person, like another player, like their PlayStation name or whatever the fuck, and you're like, "Yeah, okay," and then so another ship comes in and helps you, and then you see a couple more of those, and you're like, "Yeah, I'll take this help," and you get like 10 ships, and you wreck the credits, and you get to the end, and then it's like, "Okay, cool. Do you want to give up your save game to send your save game to somebody else to help them? Because everyone else who helped you, that was their save games coming in."
What?
And
fuck?
and if you do that, your save game gets deleted from your system.
What?
So everyone else who helped you, they deleted their save games to help you.
What the fuck?
Right? Right? That's some fucking wild shit. Like, who would do that? But these dudes did it, and it's exactly the kind of thing I would expect from this game series. That's the kind of shit that's like no one else. Like, it's like profound,
Right.
but it's also like it's just a fucking game save. Who cares? But also you just dumped like 40 hours into it,
Right.
and you're just gonna give it up to maybe help somebody else who you don't know. You're never gonna meet them, but it's like it's kind of, you know.
Wow.
So that ending fucking floored me for a while, and I didn't play that. I've never replayed that game all the way to the end again.
You're like, I'm not gonna give this up.
I give that shit like hell yeah, I'm giving that shit up. Like,
But not again.
not again. It's too taxing. It's as emotionally taxing as a game can really be, because you see that and you're like, fuck man, people I don't know helped me
Right.
for whatever it meant.
Yeah.
You know, for however little it actually meant in the grand scheme of things. Like, that's pretty amazing.
That's fucking wild. Well, and it the idea too of the replaying from different characters and different points of view of, okay, well, you're going to play as one, and then you're going to play as the other one, and now you're going to play as a third.
Yeah.
There's I guess there's a sort of a commentary there about truth and the nature of truth, and or
The character that you play as in this game initially her name is 2B. It's that like blunt,
yeah.
but also it's very nuanced throughout. Like, they do that on purpose.
Okay.
And you meet a fucking robot named Sartre, and there's a lot going on there in terms of this shit. It's
Old JP, huh?
yeah, old JP Sartre. Very like machines and nature of being and things like that. It's
so fascinates you that you like. At what point in your sort of video game journey did you understand? Were you able to grasp that video games as a medium are well equipped to unpack and examine really intricate philosophical topics and or things like that, like more so than a piece of music might be able to, or even a film?
Oof, man, that's a good question, because that's basically just like, what is the first game that you came across? Because that's a rare thing in games.
Yeah,
it's hard to do well.
Sure.
And there are like studios out there who are known for doing it poorly, but they keep trying. So, yeah. God, what is the early? Maybe like, it depends on how well they did it, I guess. Like, if you remember from the first one, like there was like Deus Ex.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty good example for the time.
Right.
But then like a decade later, you had the first Nier game, and that did it really well, but much better.
Right.
And then you had this game and a couple of games here and there, but there aren't many.
Okay.
There really aren't many.
Yeah. For me, because my video game consumption is like the very like sort of surface popcorn movie level.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the games that I play are the games that literally everyone has played, but I was very moved and floored by sort of the levels of meaning in a BioShock Infinite.
Okay.
For instance, you know, that you were able, it's like, I just played through I am weeping at the end of this fucking violent first person shooter that was about class consciousness and quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And so yeah. But again, that was at the time. I mean, that was like fucking 2000.
That was 2013, I think.
Yeah, I would have played it in 2013. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So, your recommendation? I was like, what's a good video game? You'll like BioShock Infinite.
Was it really nice?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I texted you. I was like, I'm in the mood for a new video game.
Sick.
You know,
I'd probably just played it.
You recommended that in XCOM. XCOM 2.
Okay.
So I got both of those.
Good recommendations, Robert.
Way to go. Way to go.
Back. Very different kinds of games, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So let's do a quick one.
Uh-huh.
So Necrodancer.
Yeah.
Motherfucking Rave Zelda.
Hell yeah, it is. Man, funny you say that because the next game that studio made was a Zelda game, basically.
Really?
They made a rhythm game for Nintendo with the Zelda characters and shit. Very, very, very based off of Necrodancer. So, perfect pull. They're like the only studio who's ever been given license to use the Zelda characters, I think. Because Nintendo doesn't just hand that shit out to people.
For sure.
So, good pull.
So yeah, this music is great. So this is a rhythm-based game.
Yeah.
Okay.
You watched the gameplay a little bit?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And there's only like one other game, and I can't remember the other. Thumper.
Okay. Yeah, where you're going on the railing. And
yeah.
I just bought that, and I'd never played it actually.
A friend of mine was just hardcore into it several years ago when it came out,
I just bought it because you can play it in VR. And I want to play it in VR.
I bet that's gonna be some shit.
I fucking bet it is.
So, but that was the first time I was aware of these games where that are rhythm based,
right.
or rhythm violence. I think is
that's how they market that fucking game.
Yeah, how they market Thumper.
Yeah, because there are games like Guitar Hero and things that but that's not what that is.
That's
a different thing. Yeah. These you have to be on a rhythm to do well in the game.
But it's not like it. But there's another thing. Like you're moving a character or an object rhythmically in space. You're not trying to replicate music. You're not trying to like facsimile replicate music.
Yeah. And specifically in this game, you move with your like WASD keys or your controller directions or whatever, and you do it on the beat.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you keep your combo going.
Wow.
So if you do that, you're doing better, and you can get off the beat, and you don't die, but you just lose your combo. So there's heavy incentive to keep on the beat, and the catch is as you move, so does everything else. So you have to like figure out the patterns of how things move and move accordingly.
Interesting.
And everything moves differently. Sometimes it'll just go back and forth. Sometimes it'll just go one every couple beats, or sometimes they'll come at you like super fast, like.
Okay.
It's pretty rough. You can play this game with a DDR pad too.
What's a DDR pad?
Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh shit.
Which is pretty fucking cool. I have one. I've never been able to really use it because I've always lived in apartments and had people below me, unfortunately.
Right, but below me.
I look down my nose at them. To the next floor.
You just need to tell your neighbors to below you. I'm playing DDR.
Hey, fuckers.
You can below me.
Nice.
So yeah, this music's great. Obviously, it's cool. It's no surprise. I don't want to undersell any of this music. Because like at this point I'm like, yeah, well of course it's great and awesome.
Right. But yeah, it's Danny Baranowski who did the Binding of Isaac soundtrack from last time.
Right.
Yeah,
Which was killer.
Dude kills it.
So, sorry, I lost my place here in my notes. So I did notice something that I thought was interesting. It's sort of, attached to the thing I said about like funky, jammy music and the experience that the game is trying to create.
Yeah.
Which is I noticed that a lot of the songs from Persona and a lot of the songs from Crypt of the Necromancer are in similar tempo ranges. So most of it is in the it's close to 120, like plus or minus 5 to 10 BPMs.
Yeah.
There's one song on Persona that's a slower one that's around 70 or so.
Right.
But yeah, and I was like, it's interesting because those two games have very different gameplay, but that is kind of like the 120, like some people refer to that as like the heartbeat or like the walking tempo or whatever, and it's like it's interesting. I wish I had something more deep and profound to say about the tempo choice, right? Like not just the stylistic choice, but like the tempo choice of and how the tempo of the music relates to gameplay.
Yeah.
And things like that. But
I think there's definitely something to be dug out there for sure because
yeah.
I mean, in Necrodancer, there's literally a fucking heart on the screen beating the pulse of the tempo at you. So there's that. And there are some slower tracks in there for sure. Like, there's one that's like boom.
Gotcha.
So there's some variation, but a lot of them are roughly right around in there. And then Persona, a lot of that stuff is like shit's happening. There's battles going on or whatever.
Right.
Or the story's moving forward. So they want to keep pushing forward.
Right. So let's talk about that game a little bit.
Yeah. Persona 5 is what this is.
That game's fucking weird.
Yeah, it is.
And that music is fucking weird. So, yeah. Persona 5, I was like, uh-oh, it's back.
Yep. So we did 3, 4, and 5 now.
This strange 70s exploitation film interpretation fusion funk. And then I was like, these bass lines.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have a lot to add to it except for like, this is just really great, amazing, funky fusion music, man. It is like also groovy. It's also well executed. And I know you explained it to me. I vaguely remembered it, and I was like, I started watching the gameplay video.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this is the one that has, like, there's these, like, this, the gameplay is existing on sort of multiple levels where there's like these, like, you have like the actual quote unquote character that's running around and interacting in space, but then whenever there's fights, it's like their personas.
Yeah, you have your like group and they summon their personas.
Right.
Yeah.
And they battle other people's personas.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
And shit like that. But it seemed like there was a lot of the gameplay where you're just kind of like running around.
Yep.
Like in an urban environment and whatnot.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well that makes sense with some of the choice of music, you know.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time just running around an urban environment in this game,
right?
Because a big part, I don't know if you remember, but there are two like main sections of the game that feed off of one another. There's the battling stuff where like you go into a dungeon and you do fights and shit, and then there's the social aspect of it,
right?
Where you make friends, you like forge relationships with people in the game,
right?
And those power up your personas in battle. And then the further you go in here, the more you can meet people.
Interesting. Yeah, it seemed like there were, like, as I skipped through, it seemed like there were sort of three main, like there was the dialogue aspect, there was sort of like this running around exploring aspect, and then the fighting aspect.
Yeah, pretty much.
It seemed, it might have just been a weird, like what I happened to click on, but it seemed like there was a lot of like sexual overtones and stuff in that game.
Yeah.
Of like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, oh, you just have to endure it. I was like, oh, is this prostitution? And then like I skip around a little bit and it's like, I feel bad because of the sexual harassment. And I was like, oh shit.
No, that's literally.
Is that just like,
yeah.
is that just part of this game? You know?
Yeah. And some, like, I think the guy who was talking about that was like, it's meant to be like the shadow version of themselves. So like the most extreme version of themselves. But that shit's all over these games. Both in like, it meant to be portrayed as a bad thing, and then also people on your team just being like skeezy fucking weirdos.
Right.
So it's a very like Japanese sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very weird game on many fronts.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have the slightest understanding of it.
Fair.
The music is incredible and the game looks really interesting. And I guess like that is probably a thing that kind of keeps happening with these, especially once I started incorporating, or once you started incorporating the gameplay videos, and is sort of understanding how big and creative and expansive the world of video games is. Because I think because video games are sort of such a, I mean, I guess you could say this of all art really, but video games are often a very, I'm not going to generalize. Okay, for myself, video games have always been a private thing, right? Whenever video games were social, it's because I was playing with other people in the fucking room.
Yeah.
But whenever it's very easy to sort of subconsciously allow yourself to think that, well, all that exists, like the only types of video games that exist out there are the types that I have played. And whenever they make new games, they're just better at doing the type of things that I already know exist. This is a better first-person shooter. This is a first-person shooter that's more engaging and it tweaks these things, but still first-person shooter. Or this is a better, this is an RPG in a bigger world, or this is an RPG with whatever, like more boobs or whatever it is.
Finally.
Thank God, right? Oh, these are not triangle boobs. Finally, right? This is all I ever wanted. Looking at you, Witcher. Looking at you, Witcher.
Video games have come a long way since Lara Croft.
Yeah. But this list and all this stuff has just really exposed me to like, man, there's a lot that's fucking possible in this art form that is called video games.
Yeah, man. Like, even if you're somebody who plays like the occasional game every couple years or whatever, you're probably not going to know about much of what's out there, and that's just kind of how it is unless you're just into it.
Right.
Like, you're going to know about your BioShocks that comes along every once in a while. You're going to know about the new Halo or the new Mass Effect or the new Dragon Age.
Right.
The shit that has just like transcended
Right.
the new Fallout.
Skyrim.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The shit that has just become like a cultural touchstone in some way. But if you get even like the least bit into it, there are so many rabbit holes to go down. Yeah, I just love being into games, weirdly. Like, I don't even play most games, but I like knowing about them.
So that was another question I wanted to ask you is how do you find new games? How do you decide what new games you're going to play, or how it's like, oh, I have to play that. I can't wait to get that one. Or fuck it, I'll try this. Like, what is the game discovery process like for you?
So I mean, a lot of things. Like, I read some gaming forums every once in a while. I follow gaming people on Twitter. I listen to some podcasts. I just see news every once in a while. I know what to look for on Steam in a way. I see what people are. I don't really do that much. I do have friends on Steam who I can see what they buy and play and stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily affect what I go for. But more importantly, at this point in, like I've been playing games for like 30 some odd years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I have a very, very good idea of the kind of games that I like. And the kind of games that I am in the mood for, more importantly.
Okay.
Because I've got like way too many fucking games.
Sure.
And I have the like privilege of being able to pick what I want to play based on how I feel, like what I feel like playing, right? It's not just like, all right, I'm just going to play a game and here's the game that I'm going to play. But like, which one of these 100 some odd games, you know, that I have installed on my computer am I feeling like playing right now?
Right.
And so a lot of that goes into it a lot of the times. Maybe if there's a type of game that I haven't played in a while that I want a good one of, maybe I'll be on the lookout for one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But really it just comes down to I'm just paying attention to it a lot, to that whole space.
Right.
And I just get news from it. I see people who are talking about it. I have people who I know, like, that they have good taste. And maybe their taste sort of aligns with mine in a way. Or if I'm looking for a certain thing, I'll go see what somebody's talking about, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I'm just in it,
Right.
I guess. And if you're not, it's impossible to keep up with.
Right. That's how things have felt whenever I sort of every once in a while like, I'd like to play a new game. And what ends up happening is I end up scrolling through, you know, like the Microsoft store on my Xbox and, you know, and maybe I try something I haven't done before and that's hit or miss. Or maybe I just like, well, let me just get Mortal Kombat 28.
Do you have Game Pass?
No.
So I don't have an Xbox, but I have Game Pass because it's on PC too. And so it's like you pay, what is it, like $10 a month or something like that? $12 a month. And you can just play any of the games that are on Game Pass.
Gotcha.
And so anything they add on there, you can just download and play. And I've found so many fucking cool games that way.
That makes sense.
And so that's another way to do it, is like just look at what's added to Game Pass. Does it look interesting at all? Fucking download it. It's there. Yeah.
I almost say, give it a shit.
Give it a shit. There you go. Give it the old college shit. Ooh, man. Jesus.
Sorry, that really caught me. Okay, man. All right, cool. That's interesting. Because I guess it would be like, yeah, I listen to music 3 times a year. I'd like to hear some new
I want to
music.
hear a new music album.
Yeah, where do I go for the musics?
I guess I'll go to the Walmart music section to see what they have available.
Let me just I guess I'm getting another Garth Brooks record.
He just keeps putting them out.
I'll take his live record. Thank you.
Yeah, so pretty much that. Like, yeah.
Oh man, shit. This is not. I saw Garth Brooks live a few years ago.
No shit.
Yeah, man, it was real fun. Me and Allison went. It was, I think it was even before we were married. Anyway, he did like this thing where he's like, I'm playing at the Toyota Center for a month or whatever.
Whoa, okay.
It was ridiculous how many he just it was like
he was like in residence there basically for a while. Wow, holy shit.
They just kept adding shows, but we went, like, they would do like an 8:00 show and like an 11:00 show or some shit, or a 6 whatever.
But multiple per day.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. That's pretty wild.
It was wild. Yeah.
Wow, that's intense.
One of the more fun concerts I've ever seen, man.
I'd go see Garth Brooks.
Dude, it's so...
Fuck it, yeah.
It's so good.
I know enough of those songs where I could sing along a lot.
His band is so good, and him as a performer is just like there's just like so many... Because like at one level, it's like high level... in one way, it's like high level shtick.
Yeah.
But it's like shtick is a flat circle. Like it becomes so sincere that it's the most honest thing. Like whenever there's so much truth in the joke, right? Like the joke is more honest than the truth, right? So like I forgot what song it was. One of the big ones, He only has
One of the
38 of them.
Right. Multiple greatest hits albums.
But, you know, he's like, guy's guitar and shit. All the other lights are down. Just lights on him. And he's like, all right, I'm going to tell you all a secret. Okay. You know, like there's some other ramble and shit, whatever, you know, typical stuff. And he was like, you see this guitar? Most of the time, they don't even let me turn this damn thing on. And like he fucking strums and fucking no sound. There's fucking nothing.
Oh, wow. They don't even let me turn this thing on. That's
Right. He's like, but for this next song, they let me start this next one, right? And it's like, oh, you know, it's like Tomorrow Never Comes or some shit. Like it's a real, like, you know, very recognizable, powerful intro. I don't know if it's actually Tomorrow Never Comes, but some song that has an acoustic guitar intro, right? And we just lost our fucking minds. I mean, it was just.
Was he telling the truth? I wonder.
It's like it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Because it's like that's such a good joke and that's so expertly delivered.
Yep.
And you set me up and you made me laugh and then you like went right for my heart right after that. It's
totally.
So perfect. The other thing that was hilarious about that was that Allison and I, like, I mean, we were just wearing regular clothes, but man, was it clear that we stuck out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she had red hair and I had a beard.
Oh.
And that was not.
Was it like a lot of country folks there?
Oh, yeah.
Because I would expect a much broader audience at a Garth Brooks show.
I mean, you know.
Especially, well, I don't know.
This would have been like 2015, I think.
I feel like he was fucking on top of the world for like a.
Oh, yeah. Well, and he was. And I mean, but like. It was interesting of like having that sensation of walking around like, oh yeah, we're the odd duckling here for sure.
Yeah.
Mostly because instead of standing in the 40-person deep line to get a Bud Light, we're gonna go to the line that has nobody in it and have some St. Arnold.
Right.
Fuck all of you.
Oh man.
That was the other reason that we stuck out is because we're like, yeah, we know what a St. Arnold is.
Bunch of craft beers, uppities.
Yeah, fuck. It's just about not waiting in line.
Also, I don't need a Bud Light necessarily.
I mean, Bud Light is fine, but it's not worth that kind of wait.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
You're just broken if you like Bud Light. That's all. No. I'm just kidding.
Dude, there's people out there that really think that because they're fans of Miller Lite.
Exactly.
This happened to me once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there was a band that we were both in before you were in it, Blind Sanctity.
Yes.
I was upset about something, and I was like, because that was like the thing is like we'd get, you know, like that band was one of the most fun bands to be in ever because we would just, oh, what is it? It's Sunday. Well, we're gonna go out to Jaime's and we're gonna cook fajitas and we're gonna drink and we're gonna play metal, and it was the funnest shit ever.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'll buy beer today because I want to get good and fucking drunk because fuck my life. And I go to like Thrifty there in Dayton. I'm like, well, let me buy the beer you get at the beer getting place. Whatever. I like the color blue. I guess Bud Light'll do. Grab that shit. I show up. I've got like a 12-pack and I'm like, beer's on me today, guys, because I want to get drunk. Mm-hmm. And like Jonathan, Lavelle, and Jaime fucking look at me and they're like, so, you plan on drinking all that? Because I'm not touching that shit,
man.
And I was just belligerently. I was beside myself. Like, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? And they're like, no, we drink Miller Lite. I was like, are you fucking serious? And then like, I'll be goddamn man. So I'm like, fine. And I like tucked him by my floor tom and was like, fine. And I was
you don't
like,
get any then.
Yeah. And then and I'll be god fucking damned if like, you know, like a few hours later we're sitting there in the garage and Jaime's fucking dad is like, who brought the Bud Light? I was like, man. Fuck all of y'all. It all tastes like shit.
What's funny is I can picture, if you don't know who the fuck these people are, it's not going to play for you.
Doesn't matter.
I can picture Jonathan saying that, but 50-50 on whether he's serious or joking. I can't picture Jaime saying that at all.
He didn't say it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
he
Okay.
agreed with it.
The way he sort of glanced is okay.
To be honest, I don't have a specific memory of what Jaime did or did not do.
Fair.
But I know Jaime did not say, you know what, give me one of those Bud Lights. I know Jaime did not do that.
He went along for that ride. The anti-Bud Light agenda.
I spent a lot of time with Jonathan, and he was not joking.
Fair. I'm just saying, he's the kind of person who would say something like that and be joking.
But his jokes, his punchlines come after a few seconds. I'm still waiting.
Fair.
Like he doesn't have punchlines that go on for hours or days or years. So we're at like a cool decade now.
Still hasn't said anything about that Bud Light.
He's like, guess what, Richard? I love Bud Light. I don't think that's gonna happen.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
So thank you, Garth Brooks. This tangent brought to you by
The Miller Lite.
Right, yeah. So there's a few more games to talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
Not too many.
Just a couple.
So I think, okay, dude, well, what the fuck kind of game is Inscryption? Because I couldn't figure this out. I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Is this like Texas Hold'em with an int? Like what?
In a way, yeah, a little bit. Do you know Magic the Gathering? Are you familiar with what that is?
Yeah.
It's a simplified kind of version of that in a way.
Okay.
Is what you're seeing in the video there. It's a card battling game. It's like I was gonna say like Pokemon or something like that, but it's not quite like that either. It's like Magic is the best way to say it.
Cool.
You have cards that have certain abilities and certain synergies, and you have to play this card to be able to play this card. And if you play this card with this card, it does a thing. That sort of thing. But it's part that, and it's part also deck builder. It feeds into that.
Okay.
You get new cards, and you figure out how to weave those into your deck that you have.
I see.
That sort of thing. So that's a very addictive quality to it.
I see.
In addition, this game also has like a room escape aspect.
What is that?
So do you know what room escape is generally?
Oh. Like escape rooms?
Escape rooms, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. But there are... Oh, not room escape. You mean escape rooms.
I heard that as like one word.
Room escape.
I didn't hear room escape. I heard a room escape.
Room escape.
Yeah, I was like,
Some sort of a vacuum cleaner?
Is this a new genre of game? No, it's a room escape game. It's different than RPGs or rhythm violence games.
Yeah. It's that new RuneScape game, that room escape game. Anyhow, yes. So you're like trapped inside of a location and there are puzzles to solve within it.
Okay.
Sort of. It's not exactly room escape because you don't necessarily escape from the room. Whatever. There are puzzles to solve in this confined location.
Gotcha.
Let's say that. And then you finish that part of the game and it becomes a totally different type of game and it's wild as fuck. So
but is it all still in...
No.
What happens after the card playing?
So you turn this game on for the first time and it greets you with an old school CRT booting up.
Yeah.
And the game Inscryption boots up on it. And somebody from off camera says, "Oh, this looks like a cool game. Let's see what this is." And the implication there is that they've put a disc into a computer and are playing a game. That is the game that you play for a while. After you beat this first part of the game, you're greeted with a suite of FMV videos of a real person. And who they are is a YouTuber who opens packs of game cards on their channel. And they find one that has coordinates on it of this Inscryption game. They The next video is them going to these coordinates, finding this disc, and saying, "Oh shit, I didn't think this existed." Then they go home and send an email to the publisher of the game saying, "Did you publish this game? Does this exist?" And then the next video is someone from that company coming to his house and saying, "We need that fucking disc back. Or else." And then he's playing it some more. The next part of the FMV is over for a while. You play the next part of the game, and it's a top-down RPG in the style of Undertale, essentially, or Pokemon or whatever. And instead of just having your one set of cards, you now have 4 sets of cards that do different things. You go through all that shit, you finish that, you get more FMV videos. It fucking goes places. At the end, whatever, you're not gonna play. Are you gonna play this game? Do you care?
I'm not.
At the end of this game, the last FMV video is that person coming back to your house for the disc and shooting your fucking dude in the head, and he dies.
Amazing.
The last shot of that game is a pool of blood with a couple of cards like floating in it, and the girl walking out of the house with the game disc.
So,
yeah.
So what are you saying? FMV?
Full motion video, sorry.
Full motion video.
So it's just real ass video. Just real fucking life.
So what I thought had happened. So
Yeah.
because like the first video you sent me, or the first video there, in the playlist, because this is in the YouTube playlist. This isn't in the Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
Is just the card game, footage.
Yeah.
And then I watched the next one, and then the next one like gets to the end, and then you hear a voice go like, "Oh, I think I beat it."
Oh, that was in there? Okay, I didn't know that was in there actually.
And then it's this dude like talking about the deck of cards and da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, so that was in there.
And I didn't watch it because I was like, oh, this is just some dude who was like streaming the game or like reviewed the game.
Nope, that's the game.
But I guess this was the only playthrough video that was there with the music he liked, so that's why he sent me this. I'm not gonna watch all this motherfucker. Why is he in the woods, living, quote unquote, living his best life? I don't care about this fucking vlogger.
Great.
Why do I care about this?
Great.
Okay. Well, anyway, I guess I listened to all the music. Cool. I'm just gonna walk. I'm just gonna turn on some Black Dahlia Murder while I finish my walk home.
Great. Perfect.
What the fuck?
Nope. That's the game. That's part of the game. That's in the game.
That's like some Blair Witch shit.
Yeah. A little bit.
Wow.
A little bit. So
Wow.
there's a whole implication that the disc that he found is fucking cursed and haunted, and the people who wrote the code like died in horrible fiery deaths from it. But one of the girls who wrote some of the code was able to like infuse a message into it. And so as you're playing through the game, the characters in the game reference like, you shouldn't know about the old data, the old _data. The old data is not to be seen. It's forbidden. It's dangerous.
How fucking wild.
This is a game that came out just a couple months ago, but I fucking barreled through it in a couple weeks. It's really fucking good. Because on top of all that weird shit, which it's great at, it's also a really good card game.
I see.
It's like all the better. So
Right. The music was great too.
plus it's got this incredible ambiance all throughout.
Yeah, that like
It's fucking creepy and really moody, and yeah.
in that second video, the one with the Leshy.
The moon behind him and all this shit.
Yeah, like it.
Oh man, yeah.
So the music had this really cool falling apart vibe, without like leaning into like kind of like cacophony. Right, where like all of a sudden the things aren't lining up, right?
Right, I know what you mean. Yeah,
And the pitch gets a little off and stuff like that. But everything like moves away from the center, so to speak.
yeah.
But it does it in a way that the center still holds, and it kind of it was a very sort of unique sensation to get from music.
Totally, I get that sensation. I hadn't really thought about it that directly, but you're totally right. It does do that.
Because there's other examples of of music that like just kind of like, oh, let's just go off the rails, and you just kind of go into like noisescapes
Right.
kind of thing, which is its own type of thing, and it is effective. And this doesn't do that, but it kind of, it almost reminds. So there's like this Charles Mingus quote where he talks about that him and his he's talking about the relationship between how he plays bass to how his drummer plays drums. And he says that we have a way of playing where neither one of us are playing the beat or playing the time. One of us might be ahead, one of us might be behind, and that's constantly shifting as to who is ahead or who is behind. But in between where we are is a steady line.
Right.
That is the time.
Right.
And so the time, quote unquote, is existing in the negative space that's balanced by the phrasing of the musicians.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what this piece of music, when it sort of gets all warbly, kind of reminded me of, is it because it still maintains its effectiveness and its forward movement, because these things that are falling in and out are almost doing it in sort of a symmetric way, so that like this is a little ahead, this is a little behind, this is a little pitch this way, but this is a little pitch in the other way, that it doesn't it doesn't just sound like something's wrong. It sounds like there's just this this like sort of like a swirling, like it's an ebb and flow.
It sounds like there's intentionality behind it still.
Well,
you can going off the rails.
Well, you can intentionally go off the rails.
Well, yeah, but then you're just like doing whatever.
But it's like cycles of cycles, right?
Yeah.
That's like it's like you have your in physics, in wave physics, there's a concept called group velocity, and so it's like you have your wave, but then you sort of have an overarching wave that's kind of encompassing all of the smaller waves. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So a larger envelope, if you will. Right. And so it's kind of like that aspect.
Gotcha.
But yeah, cool fucking music.
Yeah.
All right. So the last one, or is there anything else you want to say about that?
I mean, I could fucking talk about the game for hours. That game's amazing. So.
Well, then let's move on. No one wants to. This is not the place to hear anyone talk for hours.
Nope.
Okay, so this fucking gravity
Nope.
slam.
No, keep
gravity Durst.
Keep getting there. Gravity Durst. Gravity Fred Durst.
Gravity Rush.
Yeah, there you go.
Rush. Gravity Rush.
Whoosh. Gravity Rush Limbaugh.
All right. This music's weird. But it's weird in a very interesting way. This is very, very involved music. And I spent some time I was like, I have to figure out how this music was like, because this music, more so than any of the other music, it has a conducted feel to it.
Totally. Yes.
And I was trying to find credits. Like, I wanted to find a list of fucking musicians.
Okay.
Right? Couldn't fucking find it, because it's probably where those credits exist, but they're probably in Japanese.
Yeah.
They're not on the English Google.
No, I almost bought this soundtrack when I was in Japan, because it had come out earlier that year. But I passed it in order to buy the Nier Automata soundtrack while I was in Japan, which was fucking cool.
Well, there you go.
And I bought it at the Tower Records in Shibuya, and when you got it there, they gave you a bonus disc which had remixes of the Nier songs in 8-bit.
What?
Because there are parts of the game where you go into the hacking and it just flows seamlessly into an 8-bit version of the track that it's already playing, which is fucking awesome. And then they give out these bonus discs if you bought it within like a certain time from release or whatever.
Oh, that's
and I happened to be there when they did it.
Oh, it's fucking rad.
It's fucking cool.
That's rad.
Anywho, yeah, all Japanese. The composer, I think, is the only one who's really named anywhere.
Yeah, that's the only name I could find, and yeah, because it has the feeling of like a big, if stylistically, it has the feeling of like the Monsters Inc. soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the biggest. That's the best example that I can think of sort of a big budget Hollywood soundtrack that still that has that like 1950s or 60s kind of compositional vibe, but with like a big Hollywood budget of like, you could imagine like, oh, there's like 30 people in this fucking room being recorded at the same goddamn time.
Right.
And I don't know that's, I mean,
I think that it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it is.
Okay.
Which
how fucking ambitious is that for a fucking video game? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. It's kind of a weirdly ambitious game in some ways. Like the dude who headed up creative director, I guess, on this game is the guy who like invented the Silent Hill franchise.
Okay.
Which you would have never expected to look at it. But yeah. Pretty fucking cool.
So the gameplay is like that you can control gravity.
Yep.
Now, is that just your own?
Yes. No, actually.
Okay.
Anything close enough to you, it doesn't make much sense really. But if you're standing in a group of people and you hit the gravity button and you lose gravity, basically you just start floating, and then you can choose where to go. Anyone close enough to you will also be caught in that.
Okay.
Or objects like boxes, dogs, whatever the fuck.
Okay.
And if you shoot off in a direction, because basically the way it works is you release gravity and then you look in a direction and you re-engage it, and that's gravity now.
Oh,
that's the way you fall.
So it's like propelling you in that direction.
Exactly. That's the new down for you, essentially.
Oh, okay.
And so anything caught in that goes with you.
Fascinating.
Or you can pick shit up and throw it. Also.
Yeah.
Or you can like use it to give yourself more gravity and slide along the ground.
Right.
And then some parts of the gameplay, you'll see she's wearing like white pieces of gear, and those give you moon gravity essentially.
Oh,
so you're like floaty and stuff. And then there's another set that's orange, and it's like, I think it's Jupiter gravity, and it's way more.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I've experienced lunar gravity, you know.
Experienced lunar gravity myself.
I'm a bit of a lunar gravitist.
Gravitationalist
myself.
Nice.
No, I did some shit with NASA and wrote on a vomit comet and all that. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
Lunar gravity is a trip. It's a sixth, I believe, of Earth's gravity. So yeah, I mean it's kind of what it's. You can jump real high. It's a trip.
Was it like? Were you able to be? Was there enough to weigh you down? Still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay. So I talk about this thing like other people know what the fuck I'm talking about. So yeah, no, there is a program at NASA. I'm assuming that it's still going on, but it's called like, Reduced Gravity Flight Opportunity Student Program, whatever, or something. And
the
RGAGPSOPS.
Yeah, okay, got it.
RGAGPSOPS.
That classic acronym.
And so yeah, undergraduate STEM students can, make these proposals for experiments to run in microgravity, zero Gs, right? And so if you make all these proposals, it gets accepted. You get to go down to Ellington Field, and you get on a plane, affectionately known as the Vomit Comet, and it and so what it does is it has a parabolic flight pattern, and so it cruises, and then it essentially just sort of shuts the engines off.
Oh wow!
And you're just in free fall for 30 seconds.
Holy shit! I didn't realize that.
And so the physics of it is, since everything around you is accelerating at the same rate, you're effectively weightless.
Right.
And so you can do your experiment as if it's in microgravity. It just has to be, in a 30-second interval, right? So you get to experience microgravity, and it does like 30 or whatever parabolas.
Okay.
Or whatever. So, when microgravity hits, you feel, because you're sitting, right? And you're like,
When the microgravity hits.
right.
Yeah.
It like you can feel your organs like kind of go into a new equilibrium.
Oh fuck.
Like inside of you, right? You're like it's like I think my liver just moved. and like everything kind of goes like just a little.
Yeah.
Just a little, but it's unlike anything I've ever felt before. And you really, while you're in microgravity, you really feel Newton's 3 laws. Like, so, especially the third law. So Newton's third law is that, if you act on an object with a force, then that object will act on you with an equal and opposing force.
Mm-hmm.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? That's the quick Cliff Notes way to say it. That law is very, very difficult to understand, because it's because of the prepositions, right? It's all about on, right? Like if I put a force on this table, the on table, then the table puts a force on me, right? That makes it really, but in microgravity, you can really, really feel that because you push on a wall and now you're just moving.
Right.
And you're going to keep moving until something else acts on you.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, that's going to be a person. And,
Yeah.
And so there's all those types of things that are happening, and then like every 30 seconds there's a dude at the front that you'll hear yell, "Feet down!" because you're fixing to go, you're fixing to hit the bottom of that parabola, and you're going to go from 0 G's to 2 G's.
Right.
On the uptick. So you got to like get your feet down, and then you lay down. You lay down flat during the 2 G's, because you don't want to be like but like I had long hair at the time, and like my long hair in 2G was
just like plastered.
Yeah, like it was like the dirtiest hair. It was like my hair is you know what I mean? It's how it felt. Like your hair was heavy.
Oh, wow.
And but yeah, and then at the end they do like kind of like some different gravities, like as a goof, right? Like they do lunar gravity a little, and you do Martian gravity and stuff.
Cool. Wow, I didn't realize that.
But yeah, lunar gravity was very, very exciting because you're like I don't know if I've ever felt that much like a little kid, because it was like I like jumped once and it was like whoom, and I was like whoa, and I and like someone had to grab me and be like, calm down.
Right.
So but yeah, really, really,
that's very cool.
I'm super. I feel super. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I did that a long time ago. But yeah, man, it was super rad. It was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, like so you meant you're talking about the gameplay here, right, of this game. So it's also interesting too what you're talking about, like being able to kind of like point, right,
yeah,
gravity, right, like so there's something. So there's an interesting thing about gravity as a force compared to other forces.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty analogous to the electromagnetic or electromotive force. It's the inverse square law. It's inversely proportional to the square of the distance, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're twice as far apart, the force is a quarter, right? If you're 3 times as far apart, then it's a 1/9, so on and so forth. But the difference is that for electric particles, you have a positive and negative, right? So you can have attraction or repulsion. Gravity is only attraction. But if it just so happened that there was like sort of negative, like you had like positively charged mass or negatively charged mass, you could have you know, you could have like gravity cannons or, you know what I mean? Like you could have like, not just because gravity only attracts, right? All masses attract all other mass.
Yeah.
Every piece of mass, every piece of, you know, matter here in this room is attracting every other single piece of matter.
Yeah, just too weak to do anything about it.
Right.
Versus the other forces that are acting on it.
Well, and then the other forces that are acting are just at such short range, you know, like the atomic, you know, the strong nuclear force and the, you know, but gravity is all attractive, you know, but if there was a, you know, a repulsive character to it, like you can have with a positive and a positive charge, right? You know, like that should be different, yo. So that's that, you know, if you wanted to try to like watching the gameplay, you know, it's like, it's, you know, if you wanted to try to like unpack how would this be possible? It's like it's like someone's got like someone's walking around with some like negative gravity particles or something, you know?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. That's pretty fucking cool though.
So, but yeah, it's kind of funny to think about.
Yeah.
I was gonna be a physicist in a former life. But yeah, but this music is so eclectic and wild, but really, really organic. And that's what really stands out. Because a lot of all this music on all these plays was really great, but this one feels so organic.
Yeah.
Way more than all the others, I feel. I mean, there's probably some stuff in there, but, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the second track has fucking timbales in it and violin.
Yeah.
And then the violin is almost like using phrasing that's sort of similar to like I was like, is that an Indian music? Because I mean, you do hear violin, or like that timbre, that approach. It's not a violin. I'm forgetting the name of the instrument, but that kind of approach in, you know.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm getting like Indian vibes, and there's fucking timbales in here. This is weird, and it works, and it feels very organic too, and that's so novel.
Yeah, and like if you look at the sort of location that part of the game is happening in, because each one of these parts of like the game world has its own soundtrack like that.
Okay.
And it's meant to be sort of really like, is it like a lot of bright colors, a lot of sunlight, a lot of like, sort of a carefree attitude, is what that's sort of trying to get across. And then you go to the other parts where it's like the sort of dumpy airships, and you get the acoustic, the sort of melancholy.
Okay.
And that goes with that. And you go to the part that's like fucking lifestyles of the rich and famous, these huge mansions, and you get the saxophone.
Okay, is that
right?
Rad. Okay.
So they're very thematically themed.
Okay. That like so like the instruments, like the style seems relatively consistent. Like this sort of like halfway big band / Latin / kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, but the voicings are meant to be like reflective of the locations. Absolutely.
Right. That's interesting.
I love that stupid fucking saxophone in that track.
Yeah, oh, dude,
it's so big and dumb, and like, yeah, I can just imagine like a lifestyles of the rich and famous like thing happening.
Man, when you can do some big dumb saxophone in the right way, there's really nothing better.
Yeah, it's just.
Do you ever listen to that band? It's a synthwave band called Midnight, or like the Midnight.
Probably, but it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, they're like, I don't, for whatever reason, I got into one of their records and we was listening to it in the car, and Allison was like, "Why? I don't know if I'm listening to Kenny G or The Weeknd."
Well,
I was like, that's spot on. Yeah, but so the music though, it didn't seem like it just sunked. It didn't sunk up. It like when I was watching the gameplay, like it just seemed like, oh, this is just a really cool song that's playing while the game is happening. Mm-hmm. Like it felt like there was kind of a disconnect there.
Most of those, not all of them, but most of them are those songs that played during those areas. Though. Mm-hmm. So Yeah.
Okay, so the songs are like per area, but not necessarily like the music isn't reacting to the gameplay within the area.
Nah,
It's
reacting
just-
to the environment, if you want to think of it like that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
But also like the things that you do in those areas also reflect that. So it all does play into, like in the saxophone area, you're fucking doing stupid chores for rich people that they don't want to do.
God damn
in the shitty slum area, you're like
Yeah.
helping people who are like down on their luck with stuff.
Okay.
That sort of thing.
Okay. I guess that it I'm just not used to hearing music that's this fucking involved. And so
It's pretty rare, to be fair. So
it seemed like it was kind of incongruous with the rest of it, whereas
yeah.
you know, normally you would just have like sort of some rhythmic ambient motif or something like that, and then this is like a full-on, you know, big band chart with varying instrumentation and shit like that, and
right.
you know, like
Yeah, you're right about that. Actually, it's not all that common to have, especially like composed tracks like that.
right,
Especially with a live orchestra playing. Like
yeah,
so, yeah.
because that's just like
It lends the game as you're playing it a very like you said Monsters Inc. or like a very like Pixar sort of feel, like a very like
Yeah.
animated film feel.
right, and it's
So
because I mean, like I said, that shit's expensive.
yes,
Because, you know, musicians who can read those charts and then just musicians who can read those charts with a lot of practice are rare. But the guys that can read that and lay down something that's like studio quality, like, oh no, I can read this and interpret it, and what I'm going to play is going to be like, you know, stylistically, you know, metrically, melodically, harmonically, perfect. You know,
you're gonna be paying for that.
yeah. Yeah. And how long is the soundtrack for this one?
Actually, I don't have it, but I think it's probably about 2 hours long.
It's so much music.
It's pretty long, yeah.
So we're gonna find out that like this dude, he's like, no, I did that all myself. I just have a drum set and a violin, and I faked everything else.
You couldn't tell this shit was programmed.
Yeah.
Me and Peter Steele got together and perfected this shit.
Perfected like fucking. The idea that someone writing like a Japanese composer was like, I know who I need. I need a 6'4" dude from fucking Brooklyn.
I would not be surprised if you look back in the mid 90s, late 90s, and Peter Steele was to some group of Japanese creatives like idolized. Because that shit happens. Like, you just look at this weird dude who's like, this dude's awesome. This is what we want.
Okay.
I would bet money on that it happened. I don't know that it did, but I would put money down on
You're
it.
like, but I don't know that it didn't.
Yeah, I hope it did.
So. Ratty Waddies, man.
Yeah, so that's video games. You're caught up.
all of it. It's done.
You didn't need to get into them all at all. You
Yeah.
you came to the right place.
Cool. And so, four parts of video game music.
Over a 30-year span.
We can put the controller down for a while now.
Yank the plug.
So, is there anything you want to add?
Shit, I don't know. No, nothing in particular. Like I could talk about the shit for days. I know too much stupid nonsense, but also I really love it. So whatever.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really, this is really cool because I don't feel like I would have. This was a cool way for me to appreciate this world that I know so little about, and giving me like a way in because of which is music, right? Like here's a pathway into me, without me having to, you know, play all these games.
Yeah.
And we'll play them in a meaningful way. Like, okay, yeah, I could play like fucking 20 minutes of each one of these fucking things, But what am I going to get from that, right?
But also, if you came to video games just generally like looking for good, interesting music, how are you going to go about finding it? You're not really.
Right.
Like it would be impossible.
Right.
Like even most of the shit that I found is not known for its music.
Right.
It's
I was
just
like, yeah, man. The thing I love about death metal the most really is the poetry.
right. Right. The symbolism.
Yeah. I mean, there's good lyrics in there
Sure.
somewhere, sometimes by somebody,
But
but
you gotta dig.
that's not what that's not what brings you there.
Right. Yeah.
know? Like no one is like looking at like, well, there's a new Call of Duty coming out, and I saw the trailers for it or whatever, but I'm a little skeptical. The music seemed a little canned.
Seemed like they're phoning in a little bit,
A little phoned in on the music. I just don't know if I'm going to get the new Call of Duty, guys.
Yeah. I didn't really feel like I was back in Afghanistan for the 5th year in a row. They just didn't sell it for me.
Oh, God. So...
yeah, that's that.
That's that. All right. Well, we'll see you when we see you. So,
Yeah.
adios, party people.
We'll be back.
Just a second shy of 3 hours, or 5 minutes shy of 3 hours. That seems to be our sweet spot.
I guess, yeah.
For whatever reason.
Well, we just shit comes up at the beginning there, and you got to talk about this movie for an hour, or you got to talk about the Foo Fighters for an hour, or fucking whatever happens.
Yeah, I was like, this one's definitely going to be 2 hours, and then
Never think that. Never.
And then when you were like, let's talk about a movie, and I was like, he's going to say, don't look up.
Oh man,
I fucking know it. Here it comes.
I wish you
Yep,
had said
there
that
it is.
earlier.
He said it just like I thought he would.
Oh shit.
This is definitely going to be 3 hours.
I mean, it could have been The Matrix or some shit.
I really like the new Matrix movie.
I haven't watched it yet.
Lots of people are bitching about it because people bitch about things.
Totally. And same with Don't Look Up, really. So.
But what I will say about the new Matrix movie is, if you go into it wanting it to, here's a great movie to contrast it with. Are you a Star Wars fan at all?
I have seen all of the movies.
Okay. You loved them when you were a kid? Okay.
Not really.
Not really. Okay. Well,
I watched the original the original trilogy when I was younger, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna pretend that you do.
Okay.
So
So we're gonna be you.
or just a great big segment of the population.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not me keeping Lucasfilm afloat.
No.
When people saw Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
it made you feel very similar to how the Star Wars movies made you feel when you were a kid. So now, for all the panning and all the negative flack that have flown the way of the sequel trilogy,
Yeah.
some of it deserved, most of it not.
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker is a fucking mess of a movie.
Yes.
The third one is
that's the last one, right?
Yes, that is a fucking mess of a movie.
Yeah.
Last Jedi is one of my is my favorite, right behind Empire.
When I saw Last Jedi, I said that it was my favorite Star Wars movie.
I did too.
Straight up.
I did too.
And people were like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
So
to me, it's the most interesting. It's thematic. Like, yes, there's some scenes that like weren't executed super well, that looked kind of dumb or whatever. Like the Leia in space scene looked kind of clunky.
It did.
Some of like the motivations of the characters are like, okay, well, but what is it? It's like, well, but what's happening, right? Like, what is it justifying? What is it moving? How are these? Okay, that's a dumb move, but where does it cause the pieces to land on the board? So I'll forgive it, right? Because it caused everything to land. I loved it thematically. I loved it symbolically. I loved all of it. And then they undid all of it in Rise of Skywalker because they didn't have the nuts to fucking double down on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another fucking thing. But Force Awakens felt the way that the original trilogy did when you saw it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
The new Matrix is not like that.
Right.
If you go in watching this new Matrix and you're expecting to feel the way that the original Matrix made you feel, you will be seriously disappointed.
That's what I've gathered. Yeah.
And I get so mad when people criticize something like this. It's the same reason I get mad of people criticizing Rob Zombie's Halloween because they're comparing it to 1978 Halloween. It's like, no, you need to compare that to motherfucking Halloween Part 5. You need to compare that to Halloween Resurrections, because Rob Zombie's Halloween is 10 times the film that Halloween fucking Resurrections is, or that Halloween Part 5 is. You know, you'd like, so people already hated, like there's like, people talk shit on the second and the third Matrix movies. Like those have not been universally, like everyone kind of endures them and is like, yeah, those are things, and I'll watch them every few years, but no one like openly loves those movies in the same way that they love the first one.
Although interestingly, like, over the past like couple of years, I think the clip of the fucking highway chase when the twins wreck and Morpheus, like that clip has like circulated and brought, like, has gained like a new weird life and like a weird following of like, this is some of the coolest shit ever. It's so fucking funny, but I fucking love that movie.
I love it too, man. I remember going and seeing the third one with Jeremy, and we walked out and he's like, what do you think of it? Because he'd already seen it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I thought it was pretty cool. And he's like, really? Because he was doing his best. He was like, I don't want...
He was seething.
He was like, he'd already seen it.
Right.
Right? And he was like, I don't want my opinion to cloud how you perceive it.
Okay, okay.
And he was very committed to that.
Okay, cool.
You know what I mean? Which is like respect, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty neat. And he just exploded. Like there's some of his brain still laying on the floor of Deerbrook Ball right now. But no, anyway, I really, really enjoyed the new Matrix movie.
Cool. I kind of know like generally the direction it goes in and the things that it kind of says, but I don't know any
There's
details.
some things about it that I thought were fucking amazing. There's some things about it that were very moving to me.
Cool.
Because to me, it's much more about, there's a lot more reflection on, because, okay, this is the thing, all right? The Matrix is a special boy movie. For all the like reality bending shit and all that sort of stuff, it's fucking Star Wars. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's about a special boy who's saving the fucking everything. He's called the One.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
You know, he has a mentor, he has a girlfriend, he has other people, you know what I mean? It's fucking Star Wars with like, you know, hacking.
With hackers, yes.
This is not a special boy movie. So a lot of, you know, so you're gonna, if you are adding a movie to a franchise that at any point was a fucking special boy movie, and if you're not adding a special, you're not like, oh, here's another special boy movie, there's gonna be a lot of people that are really fucking upset.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, kind of the one thing that I know about it that is really interesting is the fact that Warner Brothers was going to do this movie without the Wachowskis. And so Lana came back to do it and then was able to like put her own shit into it, and that makes me very interested just to see what that is.
There's some scenes in this that you're gonna love.
Sweet.
Like not like
oh man, hey.